baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into On Deck. I'm Tyler Redmond. As always, thank you so much for tuning into the channel. I do appreciate it. While you're here, make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and of course, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck, and of course, with the Atlanta Braves. And when it comes to the Braves, there is no bigger news than this is the start of opening week. I think that obviously you guys are excited about it. Thank you for tuning in so early. I do appreciate it. I see a lot of you guys already in the chat. Of course, more will come as time goes on throughout the night. But again, the start of opening week, and it has not gone without some interesting developments really outside of the Braves. I already see you guys talking about this in the chat, so I'll talk about it. Number one being, to me, Justin Upton. Justin Upton designated for assignment by the Angels. He is owed $28 million on the year. This is, to me, I mean, honestly, this isn't that surprising. They did do it last year with Albert Pujols. And I got to be honest with you, I don't really understand the philosophy. I get it, you're trying to win now, and you know these players are kind of on their last stretch of their contract. They're not really performing up to speed. I get all that. But again, you owe him $28 million, and you're going to pay him $28 million whether he's on your team or not. So I don't really understand it, because I don't think they're going to have anybody, coming up right behind him that he's taking the spot for. Even if you move him to the bench, he can do something, right? So with that said, a lot of people have insinuated that they would like to see a return of Justin Upton to the Braves in some capacity. He will probably be making league minimum on whatever contract he gets this year, if he is to get one. This is the final season of a $106 million 5-year deal. He signed that back in 2017. So, I mean, look, we all know who Justin Upton is, especially if you've been a fan of the Braves for the past few years. You remember his time in Atlanta and with BJ alongside him. He was one of the star players of that era of the Atlanta Braves, so he obviously has some memorable moments, but he has obviously diminished to some degree. Last year's stats, he had 17 homers, a 2.11 average, 41 RBIs, and he struck out 107 times. For perspective, in 2019, the last full season, he only struck out 78 times. So the strikeouts are up. And I think that's his biggest issue right now. The average has been, steadily declining over the past few years. The home runs aren't what they once were, and that simply is what it is, right? But that's where Justin Upton is. If you're asking me what I think about it, if it happened, I would not be opposed to it, especially if it's a league minimum deal. I think that he's more than capable of earning league minimum to be on the bench or to be a fill-in for Acuna. But I don't think I don't think you should discount what Alex Dickerson is getting ready to do, because I really think they like Dickerson a lot. I think they have a few options in terms of the outfield. I don't know that they necessarily need to go get any more, because again, you got him. You got Alex Dickerson. You got Guillermo Heredia. Arcia could potentially play outfield. They're trying to make William Contreras a super utility. He's played some outfield in spring training. I think they have a lot of options out there. So I don't think they necessarily need to. I definitely think if they wanted to do something, it would be interesting if they did it. But I really think the priority, if they're going to do anything in the market, would be to go get starting pitching. Granted, that hasn't been available. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I don't think this is a terrible idea. I know a lot of you guys are kind of wanting it to happen. Justin Upton's a great player. We're all aware of what he did with the Braves. Back in 2013, he hit 263 with 27 homers, 270 in 2014. He only had a couple of years with the Braves, but they were memorable, and I think he was one of the few shining lights of that era. So it would be interesting. I definitely think he's going to want to go somewhere that, can win, and why not go to the defending World Series championship team that you used to play on. So I definitely get that mindset, but at the same time, I don't fully expect it to happen. I would be pleasantly surprised if it did. But that's where I'm at on on Justin Upton. Aside from that, I mentioned Ronald Acuna. Ronald Acuna is officially on the 10-day injured list. So what that tells me is he's projected to return in mid to late April, which is a good sign. I don't think he'll be in the outfield, obviously. I think he's going to start as DH and go from there. I mean, if Ronald Acuna has showed us anything in the past year, it's that, you know, you can expect him to be there early rather than late. What I mean by that is you can expect a recovery early rather than late because he has outshined every possible expectation. I mean, I'm looking at a timeline here on my screen, and 21 days ago, it's Ronald Acuna won't play the outfield until late May, and as early as or as late as 12 days ago, Ronald Acuna could play outfield in early May, and now we're talking about him playing in late April. So he continues to beat expectations. I think, again, you're going to see him at the DH position early on. And, if time goes on and they feel comfortable putting him back out in the outfield, then that's what they'll do. But that's where I'm at when it comes to, again, Justin Upton, Ronald Acuna, and the outfield situation. Now, another interesting thing, and I know we got a lot of comments. I promise you I'm going to get to them. But another thing that I found interesting today, the Rangers put a few guys in the minor leagues today. And I thought that, you guys might be interested to know that one of those guys was Charlie Culberson. He did not make the Major League roster for the Texas Rangers. So that they, again, selected Charlie Culberson, Matt Bush, and Matt Carpenter to AAA. It would be interesting to me if the Braves went and made a move there. We talked about that a while ago. I actually was talking about it on the stream only to find out that he had been signed to the Rangers that day. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if we're putting William Contreras in the infield and outfield as a legit defender, I think there's potential there, to go get another super utility guy, and I don't know of anyone that's more super utility than Charlie Culberson. I just don't. So, again, it would be interesting. I've mentioned it before, and don't be surprised if it happens, but again, I don't expect it to. I know a lot of you guys are going to want to know, do I see any major moves happening prior to opening day? I don't, for right now. Not any major moves. I think the rosters are kind of all but set, with maybe a couple surprises that could come our way, but I think for right now, you're looking at what the roster is. Now, what's interesting about the roster, a couple of things. We mentioned William Contreras. They are carrying 3 catchers, d'Arnaud, Manny Pena, and William Contreras. But again, they're trying to keep Contreras, to be a super utility is what it seems like to me, because all throughout spring, it's been weird to me because all throughout spring, we've seen him in the outfield. We've seen him in the infield. We've seen him behind the plate. We've seen him DH. I mean, we've seen a lot of different things. I think they're going to try to keep him, somewhat around because of his bat. I mean, I don't think you're going to have to worry about, him, getting behind the plate because, again, you have Travis d'Arnaud and Manny Pena, who are both more than capable of taking over that position and covering it. I mean, we saw Travis d'Arnaud cover the entire postseason last year. So I don't think you're going to see William Contreras get behind the plate, barring something bad happening. But at the same time, never a bad idea to have depth at a position. So that's interesting to me. Aside from that, though, Spencer Strider is also on the roster as of right now. Now, that could change. But right now, Spencer Strider will be on the opening day roster. And again, guys, the opening day roster, if you look at the opening day roster compared to, let's just say, a postseason roster, end of the year roster, whatever you want to call it, I mean, they always fluctuate like you wouldn't believe. I mean, especially last year, with the trade deadline that we had and, all of the changes that were made throughout the year. I mean, the roster is going to fluctuate. Everybody makes a big deal about the opening day roster. I make a big deal about the opening day roster. But with that said, it's not as big of a deal as the postseason roster, right? This is just the early part of the year and who's shown their worth throughout spring training, a very short spring training. So I still think you're going to see people move up and down. And I think that's all across Major League Baseball. I think, that's part of the reason you're seeing trades as late as you are. I mean, Craig Kimbrel is one that just got traded to the Dodgers for A.J. Pollock. to the White Sox, obviously. So I think that's why you're seeing trades as late as you are, because people don't know what their teams have right now in a lot of ways, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But there's a lot of unknown across Major League Baseball, and look at what the Braves did. I mean, look at what the Braves did with their bullpen. I mean, as many guys as we signed with Kirby Yates and Kenley Jansen and and Colin McHugh, we still have Luke Jackson down for the year, right? I mean, that's official. He's down for the year with what looks to be a future Tommy John surgery. So as much as we did, there's still a lot of unknown. So I think a lot of teams are building up, and I think Craig Kimbrel is a product of that. And I think you're going to continue to see in the early part of the year a lot of moves made across Major League Baseball. And again, not a bad thing necessarily. Obviously, not great that the Dodgers picked up what I think is a future Hall of Famer in Craig Kimbrel. But again, it is what it is. And for me, I think that the Braves are likely done. I think they got what they needed to do done. I don't think there's anything you can really add, because I don't think the starting pitching market's there. I think they're going to have to go with Huascar Ynoa and Kyle Wright, at least for the early part of the year. Maybe you fluctuate, put Tucker Davidson, Spencer Strider in that role. You could even go Kyle Muller if you wanted to pull him up from the minors. They have guys that can fill the gap, and I think that's what's important. So the back end of the rotation still the biggest question for the Braves, and it will be as we move on early on in the year. But there's a lot of good when it comes to the Braves. I mean, the lineup is solid. The bullpen is obviously, even with what I would consider two major injuries to Luke Jackson and Kirby Yates for the early part of the year at least, it's still a dang good bullpen. I mean, it's still, to me, one of the best bullpens of baseball, even with those injuries. Without those injuries, I don't think it's a question. So, for me, I mean, that's where I'm at. That's where I think the state of the Braves is. That's where I think the state of Major League Baseball is. And when just for a second, I think I need to talk about this. So, Justin Upton, just to go back on this, the Angels obviously want to win now. I think that that's what this says. I think that's what the Pujols thing that happened last year says to me. But I don't know that they're necessarily going the right way. I just don't. I think it's, I thought it was unfortunate when they got rid of Pujols like they did. I mean, you're talking about a future Hall of Famer that spent 10 years in the organization. And when you get new management, and look, I'm a big Joe Madden guy. I like Joe Madden a lot. I think he did great with the Rays. I think he obviously did great with the Cubs. I'm a big fan of Joe Madden, and I think he's, having to deal with not necessarily bad decisions by a previously run organization from someone else, and, he's having to deal with that. But I thought it was unfortunate when they got rid of Pujols. I thought it was unfortunate now that they've gotten rid of Justin Upton, when they still owe them both money. I thought that was unfortunate because, again, you're going to pay them anyway. That's like, we always talk about these long-term deals, and, I get on my soapbox about why I don't like them. This is why. I mean, you're talking about, paying a guy like Albert Pujols, who was a great talent back in the day. I think we all can agree there. Deserved every penny he got at the time, but then you don't want to give him his time in the back end. So, you're forfeiting cash when you could have used that cash elsewhere had you signed a shorter term deal, had you not given him as much money, whatever the situation is. But I definitely think there's a formula to it. I think the Braves have done a good job of figuring that out. When it comes to Justin Upton, I don't know, again, that the Braves are going to be the team to put money there. I definitely hope that he gets to go somewhere. But at the same time, I don't know that the Braves are going to want to commit to that. Now, back to the Angels. The Angels were 18 games back at the end of the year last year. They were in 4th place in the AL West. Obviously, the Astros ran away with that division and eventually went on to the World Series. But they did not finish the year that great. They had a lot of star power. I think Trout was hurt, but Shohei Ohtani has been the guy for them for the past couple of years. So, I know this is a Braves channel, but for me, I question what the Angels are doing. I definitely think they're building for the future, and that's great, but the win now mentality is not correct, in my opinion. I just don't think they're there yet. I don't know that they have they have star power with Trout and Ohtani, and some others, but I don't know that they're necessarily, I just don't think that they're necessarily, ready to go now. I definitely think their time is ahead of them. If they continue to build, if they continue to nurture what they have, but for right now, I question what they're doing in a lot of regard. But that's where I'm at with that. I hope you guys enjoy the monologue. Gonna get to your comments, of course. If you want me to answer your question now, all you got to do is super chat. I always do. I try my best to keep up with that best I can. I got 2 feeds going, so if you super chat, I should see it. But if not, I'll get to it as quick as I can. In terms of your comments, I will get to them again as fast as I can. No guarantees of when that's going to happen. But I see a lot of you guys are active in the chat. I do appreciate it. And I hope you guys obviously enjoy the show. All right, so let's talk to, first off, Zeke Smith. He said, let's go, bring on the news. I hope you enjoyed the news. That was the news. Thanks for tuning in. Jameson, thanks for tuning in, buddy. Thursday cannot come here fast enough. Completely agree. I was talking with somebody at work today, and they were like, man, I can't wait. This is driving me crazy. And I think, we're having a little bit of a, hangover because of how long it took for us to get here. But yeah, I completely agree. Dwight Cornell, good to hear from you. Says, I am very excited for my Braves to begin the 2022 season and defend their World Series championship. I've never looked at it as defending a World Series championship. I've always looked at it as let's go win another one, because I would feel differently if, if it was a UFC fight. To me, that's defending a title, or I guess a pro wrestling match, whatever you want to call it. But I definitely think we're our mindset is to go win another one for sure. By the way, guys, if you'll do me a favor and like the video, a lot of you guys are tuning in right now. I do appreciate it. It helps me out a ton in the algorithm and getting this out there and getting it to a broader audience. So thanks for tuning in. But again, make sure to like the video as you're watching. All right, Tyler Hunter says, these last few days are dragging hard. For sure, absolutely. What's up, Kendon Kelly? Richard Davis, good to hear from you. He says he expects the Braves to add someone in the next couple of days or week. I mean, maybe so. Maybe they go add, maybe they do go add Justin Upton, or maybe they do go add Charlie Culberson, or maybe even another reliever now that Luke Jackson's hurt. Maybe they do something late in the week. I'm not expecting it. I would be pleasantly surprised if it happened. I think that's the best way I can, go about, monitoring the Braves is I would be pleasantly surprised. Like last year at the trade deadline, I expected them to, do 2 or 3 moves, maybe get bullpen help. Not a whole lot after that. I mean, and honestly, a lot of you guys expected the Braves to sell. It's trade Charlie Morton away, get some prospects back. That's what the expectation was. I was more so, on the mindset of, maybe they'll do something, maybe they'll get some bullpen help and go from there. But never would I have ever imagined what they did last year. I mean, it just was. If you go watch that live from the trade deadline, I was pretty much live when Richard Rodriguez happened, when Jorge Soler happened too. So I mean, you can see the excitement in my face. I was pleasantly surprised. That's how I try to be with stuff like that. I don't really expect it. Now, if I see just an obvious, this is going to happen, then I'll tell you. But I don't see one of those obvious guys out there. And so far, I've been right. I mean, you guys have asked me, Tyler, do you think, we're going to go get, a starting pitcher? And I did early on. I didn't know who, but I thought, maybe early on. But as time went on, as, guys got signed and as guys went away, I told you, no, I don't think we're going to go get Johnny Cueto. And to this day, it hasn't happened. Now, if it does, okay. But I just don't think the Braves are really having that mindset. I think if 2 weeks goes in or 3 weeks goes by and, Wascar's had 2 bad starts and Kyle Wright's had 2 bad starts and there's no sign of improvement and that kind of thing, I think at that point you may see something drastic happen because the Braves are going to have to respond, and they're going to have to respond early. So at that point, I think things may change. But for right now, I just don't see it. I think they're going to go with the young guys and, see what happens. But I also think for the Braves, it's important to get off to an early start, a good early start. Because, last year, obviously they started out kind of rough, if you remember. Not even when everybody got hurt. I mean, early on in the season, it started out rough. It was, just 500 baseball for like the first month. And you never really got into gear, and that put us behind the Mets by, I guess 10 games or so. And it really got to be, where you're questioning whether the Braves can even win the division. And you like, I'll be honest with you. I said last year at some point, I'll just be happy if they win the division because that's where the mindset was. That's where I looked at the team, and especially after Ozuna, after that incident, after Acuna got hurt, after Soroka retore the Achilles, and there was no sign of hope. It's like, man, it would be great if we just won the division again. That would be awesome. But now I look at it like, okay, we're the defending World Series champions. We need to get to an early start. We need to be successful early, and we need to put the division on notice that we are the team to beat. Because, look, I mean, I see you guys talking about the Mets. The Mets, I saw their grade on whatever post the other day. They got an A off-season from MLB. That's wonderful and great. They did go get Scherzer. They went and got, other folks as well. But the Braves didn't need to have a big off-season. They just didn't. And the Braves did plenty. They did what they need to do. But I don't think, the Braves need to go into this, into this year with, playoff hungover, I guess is the way to put it. I don't think that's the way they need to do it. I think they need to start out early. I think they need to, again, put the division on notice. And again, we'll see what happens. But I know I'm kind of rambling here. But, I think this is the team they're going to have, Richard, and I think we're going to go from there. I appreciate the question. Joshua, he said he wouldn't be surprised if they added before opening day. Again, I would be pleasantly surprised. Mab, good to hear from you. Glad you made it in. Let's see. Mab says, hey, Tyler, Scherzer is injured. DeGrom is out for at least half the season. The Mets were overhyped and are falling to the Braves again, right? Question mark. Is DeGrom officially out for half the season? I know that's kind of been up in the air past few days. I'm sure that it's it'll be interesting. There's a lot of talk about DeGrom lately because, I mean, he's talking about whether or not he's going to be back, after next year or after this year. I definitely think that he's definitely out for a while. We'll just go with that. I definitely think that's going to impact the Mets. I mean, if you read the New York Post, apparently they're saying that the Mets should be strong enough to survive without. That was a day ago, but at the same time, you're down Scherzer as well, at least for the first short stint of the season. So the Mets have a lot of questions. I think they have more questions than the Braves do, to tell you the truth. I think they're going to have to figure out, what they're going to be if they can't perform early. That's the only way they were successful last year was because they got to an early start. I definitely think being down Scherzer and DeGrom is going to impact them in some way. I don't know. I'm never comfortable with saying that the Mets are going to fall to the Braves. I definitely think that's a worry. I definitely thought, a couple of weeks ago that they were the biggest competition in the National League East. But at the same time, now I think I definitely think they still are by a technicality. But the Phillies are not exactly, a pushover. I don't think that they're going to be as good as the Braves are, if I'm honest with you. But at the same time, they're not a pushover. And I definitely think that it's still the Phillies and the Mets that are going to give us the most trouble. But even then, I definitely think the Mets have their hands full. And I'll leave it at that. But good question. Thanks for bringing it up, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have talked about it. I definitely think that the Braves are in the best shape right now when it comes to the National League East, even with the injuries. Jorge says, what did you think of Snitker's comments about Contreras' role? I don't know exactly what he said. I mean, to me, the role kind of speaks for itself. When it comes to us, I imagine that. To me, I definitely think he's going to make the opening day roster. That's from all accounts across Major League, across Braves media. For me, in Contreras, Contreras is a young player. I think you can mold a player as young as he is to do what you really want him to do. But yeah, I'm looking at, I'm kind of following the internet as best I can. I don't see any comments that Snitker made necessarily, but it's looking like he could play third base and outfield. I think he's more likely to see time in the outfield. I don't think I don't think they're going to give up him being a catcher, because I think catchers are valuable, and I think he's good enough to be on a major league roster somewhere if he wanted to be, or if he got traded. I definitely think that's the case. I think you could see him. I think the best guess for me would be to see him in right field, if anywhere, and that's where I think it's going to be a competition. In the early part of the year with Acuna. But I think once Acuna is back, he's going back down. I think third base is a lot to expect. Again, I'm not really reading what Snit said. I'm just telling you what I think. But I definitely think that at the end of the day, you're looking at a competition where you have Dickerson, Contreras, and a few other depth pieces that the Braves have picked up. And, if they were to somehow go pick up Justin Upton, that would even add to that. So we'll see. But that's where I'm at. Map says, Tyler, I think the Braves should pick Justin Upton to replace Dickerson while Acuna is out. Here we go. I mean, he has to be better than Dickerson in the starting lineup, right? If not, we can just cut him. Well, look, I know $1 million doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it's a lot of money. I don't think Alex Anthopoulos is as quick to assume something like that as you'd think. And, I'm sure that there's more than one team checking in on Justin Upton. So he may get $1 million. He may get, 2 or 3. I don't think the Braves are going to pay him more than 1. I don't think that would be smart. But Dickerson has impressed. For whatever reason, he has impressed the Braves because he is going to make the opening day roster. And by all accounts, they are assuming that he could perform early on in the year. And look, a lot of people assumed that Pablo Sandoval was going to fall off the face of the earth. And look what he did with the Braves last year. So his spring training's been sort of mediocre, I think. But at the same time, I think that you're going to have opportunities there for Dickerson to perform. I think, against lefties specifically, I definitely think he's going to have some role early on. I don't think he's going to be on the roster again once Acuna comes back, but hey, who knows? He might stay on the roster and be a bench bat after that. So I don't think it's, don't shut down Dickerson so early and so easily. I don't think that's what it is. Let me see. Jorge says the Angels designate Justin Upton while they still owe him $28 million, but they don't get more starting pitching. Shaking my head. Yeah, I don't understand the Angels a lot of the time. They've had so much talent over the years, and they've just managed to waste it. I mean, Trout's had one postseason, and it was like one postseason series, I think. And I mean, that's the best player in baseball, right? So I don't understand the Angels and what they do, but we'll see what happens. Bill Gates says, well, first Jorge says, will the Dodgers get Upton, or watch the Dodgers get Upton? And then Bill Gates says the Padres are going to get Upton. I don't think it's going to be a frenzy to go get Upton. I definitely don't think it's going to be as necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily going to be like a major free agent out there. I just don't. But we'll see. I don't necessarily. I just don't. I don't think the Braves are really looking hard at. I don't think the Braves are really looking hard at Upton. I think it would be a nice pickup if they got him. But again, I just to me Upton, if the strikeouts are a problem, and he's being released from a team that's already paying him $28 million no matter what, I just don't know if the Braves really want to dip their hand there. Maybe the Dodgers could do it. I mean, they did it with Pujols last year. I think that's more likely than the Padres for sure. Jameson, it's crazy how every time we hear an update on Acuna Jr., it comes closer and closer to the actual start of the season. Yeah, I mean, every time we hear an update, it seems to be just a little bit better. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, I think it would be great if Acuna came back in late April. But I'm also not, in the mindset of let's rush him back. I mean, I think the Braves will perform with or without Acuna early on. So we'll see. Alrighty. Good to hear from you, RLP. Glad you made it in. Richard Davis says that Culberson could ask for his release. He very well could. I mean, if he's on the minor leagues, he's definitely out there for trade bait, so we'll see. But it would be nice to have Charlie Clutch back in Atlanta for sure in some capacity. RLP says Brock Holt was looking really good. He was hoping that he could have been that utility guy. I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes to Brock Holt asked for his release. So it's not really a decision that the Braves had. I definitely think, that could have happened later in the season possibly. But it didn't look like he was going to make the Major League roster, which I think was a little surprising because I thought he did well in spring. But I think that shows you how much spring is valued, in the front office. There was an interview, I think with 680 and Kevin McAlpin the other day with Alex Anthopoulos, and he was saying that he barely gets to watch spring. And if that doesn't tell you how much spring is valued, then I don't know what else would. So for me, I think Brock Holt was a talking point for a couple of weeks. I think it was cool to talk about for a while, but I think he's going to move on and try to play every day for another team. And if that's what he wants to do, then that's what he's going to do. Yep, Jorge, it is indeed looking like Luke Jackson will need Tommy John surgery. And that's unfortunate, for a guy like Luke Jackson who came back after all of what, after all the criticisms that have been out there over the years. He came in and last year, I think was one of our steadiest relievers. And I don't say that lightly. I think Luke Jackson was one of the relievers that we could count on most throughout the regular season, up and down. He might not have been our best, but he was the one that, I think surprised a lot of people in how well he actually did. So it's unfortunate that Luke Jackson is going through what he's going through. Wish him the best here at On Deck, of course. I've actually met him a time or two in the Battery. He was riding a skateboard into the stadium. And if that's not the most Luke Jackson thing you've ever heard, then I don't know what is. But yeah, very nice guy. Wish him the best. Hate that it's gonna take him out for the year because it likely is. But you know what? At least he, the last appearance he had, it was a World Series. So I think he's got a lot of years ahead of him. But for right now, he's got to focus on getting healthy again. Richard Davis. Oh nope, sorry Richard, we got a super chat. Robert Gall, thank you so much. He says, keep up the good work. I appreciate it. I'll try my best. No guarantees, but I'll try my best. Thanks for that, Robert. Always appreciate you tuning in and super chatting for sure. Again, guys, if you want me to answer your questions as soon as you want, as soon as you send them, just go ahead and send a super chat. I will stop what I'm doing, and I will focus on you alone. So make sure to super chat. Make sure to, of course, like the video. Again, helps me out a ton. I see a lot of you guys watching and not a lot of you guys liking. So make sure to like the video. It does help me out a ton, and I do appreciate it. Again, thank you, Robert, and thank you all for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Okay. Richard Davis says they are carrying Contreras now again because they have no better choice. I wouldn't say that. I think that Contreras' bat is pretty valuable. I think Contreras could play on a lot of major league teams. I just don't think it's the Braves. And you're talking about a team. You're talking about a team that just won the World Series, has a lot of depth, and I get that we're having a lot of questions when it comes to the outfield and things, but at the same time. You look at the questions we have in comparison to what the questions the Mets have. We're down Acuna. Doesn't look like we're going to be down Acuna very long. It doesn't look like, Ozuna's going to go very long in the outfield before he's moved to the DH position. I think Contreras' bat is so valuable that it makes up for whatever he lacks behind the plate. And, I think it says a lot that we went and got another catcher. To be honest with you, I would have thought that if we were going to trade a catcher, it wouldn't have been Langoliers. It would have definitely been Contreras. But at the same time, Contreras can hit, and that's valuable. And if it means that he takes over a bench spot and he becomes the emergency catcher, I don't mind that. I wouldn't word it like that, to be honest with you, Richard. I wouldn't word it in the sense that they have no better choice. I think that's the choice they made. I think they had a lot of choices. We went through just Double A's big week the other day. You got Dickerson in the outfield. You got Brock Holt. You got, at one time you had Phil Gosselin. Guys that, are utility that could have, been that guy. And they chose to go with Contreras. And you know what? Maybe he's got some skill we don't know about. Maybe, look, if he's as young as he is, which he's pretty young, he's still athletic. I know he's a catcher, but it's not like, he's going to be terrible. And to be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was a DH here and there. I think the depth, in terms of what's in the field, has lost a little bit of priority because, again, not National League rules. You don't necessarily need as many pinch hitters. Oh, really, if any pinch hitters. I mean, you're looking for guys that can give you spot starts. And there's nothing wrong with keeping your eye out, on an extra catcher because, again, catching is an invaluable thing. Maybe they're showcasing him. Maybe they don't view him as a future Brave. Maybe they view him as a future trade piece still. And, look, they got d'Arnaud for the next 2 years. They got Manny Pena for the next 2 years. And unless Contreras can take over Manny Pena's spot and outperform him, then, yeah, he's likely going to be traded, I think, still. And to be honest with you, that's why I thought Shea Langoliers would be the one we kept because of the timeline. Because Shea Langoliers was 2 years away and Contreras wasn't. And, it didn't turn out to be that way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Contreras is going to be around forever. So we'll see what happens there, and continue to monitor it. Again, maybe they're showcasing him, maybe they're showing all of what he can do and that kind of thing, and giving him major league exposure. But, to me, if you really believe in a prospect that he's not going to get regular innings behind the plate, then I would assume he'd be, in the minor leagues getting regular innings. But, again, we'll continue to monitor it for sure. But we'll see. Robert Gall sends a super chat again. Thank you so much. He says, Dodgers just traded A.J. Pollock, which shows what they care about bench depth. I agree. Pollock didn't necessarily have the best postseason last year. I think we all remember him dropping the ball in the outfield against the Braves. But beyond that, I don't think he ever really found a spot with the Dodgers. And now when you're not under National League rules, that there's definitely some questions there. But at the same time, I think it's an arms race to some degree because, they wanted Kimbrel. And after losing Kenley Jansen, who could blame them in a way? But at the same time, I think it's more of an arms race. I don't think they really necessarily wanted to lose A.J. Pollock. But at the same time, if it brings you in Craig Kimbrel, then I understand it. But, maybe the White Sox, trades, a lot of people look at trades from one point of view, right? Like, I think we have a bad habit of looking at trades solely from the Braves' point of view, right? Like, let's take in the Matt Olson deal. Why did we trade Shea Langoliers? Probably because the A's asked for him. So when you talk about this trade and you talk about Craig Kimbrel, why would the Dodgers trade A.J. Pollock, right? He's their only bench depth. He's bench depth, whatever. Or he's whatever he is to the Dodgers. Probably because the White Sox wanted him, and that is what it is. There's always two sides in a trade. So I think it's a good question, but I definitely do agree with you. I think it does show where they're at, where their mind's at when it comes to bench depth. If the Braves have this in their pen, right, the Dodgers are going to have to compete with that at some point, whether it be in the regular season or the postseason. So they're going to have to compete with it at some point, and I think they're preparing for that. It's going to be a fun watch. It really is, because their pen last year, I don't think was near as good as what the Braves had. I think we, at least in the postseason, we can all agree there. But I also think that they were stretched thin because of what Scherzer was unable to do in the postseason and what the team was unable to do and the starting rotation was unable to do. The starting rotation primarily relied on, I guess, Gonsolin and Walker Buehler. And that was, set up for failure from the beginning because their bullpen was stretched thin from game one against the Braves. So, the Dodgers, a lot of the decisions they make aggravate me from a baseball, person's point of view. But from a Braves fan's point of view, they can continue to do it all they want. Good question. Thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate it, Robert. And again, guys, make sure to super chat if you want your question answered early. I will do it. Map says, Tyler, did you know that Justin Upton is only 2 years older than Freddie Freeman, and and the Angels are already releasing Upton. What are the Dodgers thinking giving Freddie Freeman a 6-year deal? 4 years older than Upton at the end. Sure, but not all players age the same. I think Upton's a little bit more dependent on home runs, and I don't think Freddie is. So there's that. I also think the Dodgers assume that their time frame to win is now, much like the Braves do. Right? The Braves I think have a little bit more time, but if I was, I always pull this up. I always pull this timeline up, right? If I was to pull this up for the Dodgers, right? I want you to imagine where most of their stars end. They might have Mookie Betts for a few years. They're gonna, but the Clayton Kershaws, the Justin Turners, the guys that have been there forever. They're gonna they're set up for success a lot like the Braves are. They're gonna have Freddie Freeman, Walker Buehler, guys like that are young and guys like that they've recently signed to long-term deals. Mookie Betts, again, another one. They're gonna have those guys. But they're going to have a lot of turnover at some point because Justin Turner can't play forever. Clayton Kershaw can't play forever. And at some point the Braves are going to go through this, probably towards the end of Ozzie Albies' deal. And they're going to have to figure out, if they want to continue to re-sign these guys. We've talked about that plenty. But the Dodgers think that their time frame is now, or they think that they're just never not going to be good. So, again, that if I was to look at what the Dodgers have, at some point it's going to end. And I think they view it as they got the next few years, maybe the next 1 or 2, before they're going to have to re-sign a bunch of guys to long-term deals. Granted, they don't mind spending money. But, I don't think that they necessarily care if Freddie Freeman's, not what he once was at the back end of his career. So the 6-year deal thing is what it is. He's not, I think we've talked enough about Freddie Freeman in the past few weeks personally, but I definitely think what you're saying makes sense. And, when players hit a certain age, that there is a steep decline. I think Freddie's got a little longer than what Upton had. But yeah, I think you're more so talking about the last 2 years of that 6-year deal and what happens then. And only time will tell. Some players, look at what Charlie Morton's doing. I know he's a pitcher, but look at what Charlie Morton's doing in his older years, right? Some players, age like fine wine, others age like spoiled milk. You just really never know. And that's why I don't like those long-term big money deals. I've never liked them. I don't think they're fair to the organization as much as they are to the player. And maybe the players deserve it. I don't know. I don't really know what the right answer is, but I definitely think there's a problem and a disconnect there. But thanks for the question, Madman. I appreciate it. Hey, guys, make sure to like the video. A lot of you guys tuning in tonight, make sure, again, to like the video. We'll appreciate it a lot. All right, Jameson says, okay, how do you say after what Kyle Wright showed yesterday, feel like he's locked in as the number 4 starter for us? Let me look at yesterday, because I think I know what you're talking about. Hang on a second. Sorry, guys, I'm looking up this specific. I want to look at exactly what he did and be able to really break this down. All right, so yesterday versus the Red Sox. Braves lost 6-3. Let me see. Oh, it's not going to show me stats, really? Yeah, it's not showing me stats. But, yeah, it definitely looked rough. I'm not going to lie to you. That's all I can really say about it right now. But it's what the Braves have, and it's spring training, and a lot of times in spring training you're trying things because at the end of the day, guys, spring training doesn't matter. Braves won 6-1 today. Who cares, right? It's spring training. Matt Olson's hit 2 homers. Good thing to know, good thing to see, but take it with a grain of salt. And I think you have to do the same with this. So I think it starts on Thursday. And I think that's what we're going to see. I don't think he's a lock. I don't think he's locked in as a number 4 starter. I think he's going to be the number 4 starter on opening day. And I think that's what you have to look at right now. Appreciate the question there, Jameson. Richard Davis says, a lot of guys still unsigned. Fulte is out there. Just saying. Look, it's no secret I like Fulte a lot. But his stats over the past few years have not exactly been great. And to be honest with you, when he left the Braves, I was hoping he would prove the Braves wrong, and it just hasn't happened. Guys, I've met Fulte a few times, like Fulte a lot, but his 5.44 ERA and 2.12 win-loss record is not exactly great. And as much as I'd like him to, be able to perform, it's just I don't see the Braves doing that. I mean, keep in mind the Braves did, that they released him. They DFA'd him, and I don't think you really want to commit to that. I mean, maybe on a $1 million deal just to eat innings. But even then, I think at that point you might as well give innings to your young guys and go from there. But I get what you're saying. I definitely think guys are out there, but are they the right guys? Are they the guys that the Braves really want to commit to? I don't think so. Appreciate the question, and let's move on. That's from Richard Davis. Yosemite says the longevity of a first baseman and an outfielder are just different. He's referring to the Freddie Freeman and Justin Upton conversation. Yeah, and I think, again, players age differently. Look at Albert Pujols, right? I mean, he got a 10-year deal, and I think he might have had 2 good years, and then he declined, on a steep decline. Miguel Cabrera is another one, but on the same token, Mike Trout is not there yet, right? And those guys are years apart, but you're not seeing such a steep decline, if any, out of Mike Trout. So it's really hard to know how players are going to age. I mean, you're kind of taking a gamble whenever you make a long-term deal. When you make any deal, you're taking a gamble. But you're really making a big one when you give a long-term deal to a player that's halfway through his career. I mean, you just really are. All right, we got a super chat, and it's from Daniel Fowler. Daniel. Okay, I'm going to read this, and I'll go from there. Daniel says, spoke to Sydney today. I know what he's talking about. I know you guys don't. Looks like I'm getting the signed 500 homer lithograph with 11 Hall of Fame and the Musial Mays Aaron Ball. Here's my thank you for putting me in contact, my guy. Real class act. So I appreciate that, Daniel, first of all. Daniel reached out to me about my autograph collection in the last stream. We got him hooked up, it seems. Glad that you guys are going to be able to do that. And by the way, guys, I guess I'll go ahead and give my boys a free plug. If you have any autograph questions, as you can see, I have a ton of stuff around my head right now. I picked up this beautiful thing the other day. Cal Ripken Jr. signed full-size helmet. Now, look, I don't know how educated you guys are on autographs. I got this for $185, and that, I'm just going to be honest with you, is an awesome price. I got it from the same guys Daniel's talking about. BP Sports in Marietta, Georgia. I don't know how many of you guys live around here, but BP Sports is the way to go. I get you can order online and all that, but anything you get from BP is going to have a C of A. It's going to have all that stuff. I promise you, it's also going to have some good deals. As you can see from Daniel's comment right here. BP Sports, again, BP Sports, you can find them on Facebook, you can find them on Google, you can find their phone number. Call any one of those guys is great. Sydney personally is great. Bob is great. Any of those guys, go talk to them. BP Sports, again, Marietta, Georgia. I promise you, you guys won't be disappointed. And to be honest with you, if you live in Marietta and you've never been there, they're in the Cobb Antique Mall. I promise you it's worth a trip. I remember I convinced some of my friends, we were on the way to Gatlinburg a couple years ago, and I convinced some of my friends, guys, come on, listen. And they're not even necessarily baseball people, but they walked in there and they dropped some money too. I mean, I promise you, they got all kinds of memorabilia. They got NASCAR, they got baseball, football, basketball. I mean, anything you can think of. And it's a great place to go. It's a great place to visit. And the guys in there, man, they got some great stories too. I mean, they've been around the game for a long time. So again, thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it. I really do appreciate it a lot. And again, BP Sports in Marietta, Georgia. And thanks again, Daniel. All right, so moving on. Jameson, he says, bummer on the news about Luke Jackson. Yeah, it definitely is a bummer for sure, but I'm sure the Braves bullpen will be able to move past it. Bill Gates says, what are your thoughts on the Duke versus Carolina game Saturday? Was it the best tourney game you have ever watched? Well, you know, Bill, I don't know if you followed me on social media, but I know I've said it here before. I was actually at March Madness a few weeks back. I watched Duke round 1 and 2, and they almost didn't make it as far as they did. I mean, I think they almost lost to Miami. I'm pretty sure it was somebody early on. I can't remember exactly, but it was that was fun for me because I was courtside for it. So that was a lot of fun. They had a great tournament. Obviously, congrats to Carolina. Coach K, congrats to him on a great career. I don't know if it's the best tourney I've ever watched, but it was the only tourney I've ever watched in person. So I guess you could go with that. But yeah, for sure. Very, very good, fun series, undoubtedly. AC Gonzalez 7 says Kimbrel stats in Chicago were great before the trade deadline, 23 saves and a .49 ERA. I definitely think we tried to go get Kimbrel. I definitely think that was a conversation piece without a doubt because, Alex Anthopoulos said the other day that Freddie Freeman was trying to recruit Craig Kimbrel, and maybe Freddie Freeman recruited Craig Kimbrel to the Dodgers to some degree, right? Made that trade a little bit easier. I doubt it. I don't think Craig Kimbrel, really wanted to come back to Atlanta, and that's his loss because he could have won a World Series. But Craig Kimbrel is obviously a great talent. I think that he's on his way to the Hall of Fame. Billy Wagner's got to make it in before he does, in my book. But I definitely think he's a great talent. He's going to continue to be a great talent. Unfortunately for the Braves, it's going to be on the Dodgers. So we'll see what happens as he gets a little older and see how he ages in his later years. He's got some things to accomplish before he wraps up his career, but I think he's had a good one so far. A lot of the good years spent with the Braves, mind you. Jameson says, does that mean that Darren O'Day is now on the opening day roster for the bullpen? Yes, Darren O'Day will be on the opening day roster for the bullpen. He is without. I thought he might make it anyway. I think this solidifies it. Tyler Thornburg is another guy that we've talked about that I told you could be a sneaky pickup. He's actually a guy that is returning from Tommy John. He missed 2021 with Tommy John, and we're paying him virtually nothing. So he's on a quest to prove what he can do now. He's another one of those guys, much like Darren O'Day, who is going to be on the back end of the bullpen. Not necessarily guys that you're going to be on opening day just like, wow, we got this guy. But he's going to be a guy that I think could be sneaky. He's had a good career so far. Again, not paying him anything. This was a low-risk pickup, and it's a good thing we got him when we did because now, you're starting the year without Luke Jackson, but you got Tyler Thornburg, and you got Darren O'Day. And both of those guys, we're not paying a ton, and Darren O'Day, we're all very familiar with. Weird delivery, but good results. Tyler Thornburg, I think, is going to be another one of those guys that, that outdoes himself, and hopefully that's the case. But good question, Jameson. Thank you for reminding me. We got a super chat. Thank you to William Fulgham, one of my biggest supporters. Kyle Wright will win 12 to 15 games and have an ERA under 230 and win the Rookie of the Year award. William, I'm going to screenshot that, and I'm going to hold you to that. I'm not going to bet with you, but I'm definitely going to hold you to that. So we'll see how it ages. Thanks for the super chat, and I do appreciate it. Yeah, I think Kyle Wright's got potential. We talked about it pretty extensively on the channel. I think he's still got plenty of potential. I think that, when it comes to Kyle Wright, a lot of people, I guess I'll go through the spiel again. A lot of people remember what I remember, and that's the NLCS Game 3 in 2020 against the Dodgers where he got absolutely shell-shocked, right? I remember it. I was there. It was awful. I remember it like you couldn't believe I remember it. It was one of the worst days as a Braves fan that I've ever experienced. With that said, I do not hold that against him because he was brought up from the minors. I want to say it was like his 5th Major League start. I didn't expect him to win the game. I didn't necessarily expect him to get blown out like he did. But I expect a lot better out of him this year. And I think this year is going to be a telltale sign and I'm not saying he's going to be what Ian Anderson was his first year, but I think if there's not a sign of improvement this year, I would, for one, be surprised. And two, I think that's when you start wondering, okay, what are we going to do now? And what is the future of Kyle Wright? And is it with the Braves? I think that's when you have those questions. But for right now, I think a lot of the problems is he hasn't been fully developed. He hasn't had a lot of time, a lot of consistent starts, because when you have, let's say you have three starts back to back to back, right? Because that's been about what his tenure has been. It's been a bunch of, 2 starts, 3 starts here and there. I mean, he hasn't had, okay, you're a fundamental part of this rotation. Now he has that. But when you have those spaced out starts like I just mentioned, let's say you have a good start. Okay, 4 days later, 5 days later, you have the worst start ever. And then it's like, okay, now you're sent back down to the minors, or you're sent to the bullpen. That's not how you grow. I think now that he can have those consistent, innings, and now that he has had successful postseason experience in a World Series, not to mention, I think you're going to see a better year out of Kyle Wright, and I would, not necessarily put money on it. I don't know that I necessarily think he's going to have an ERA under 2.30. I'll take one around 3. I'll take one. I'll be glad to take one around 3. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But if that happens, y'all owe William Fulgham some money. All right, I lost my place, so I got to scroll back up. Let me see. All right, so let me see. John Kruger asks, is it for sure that Luke Jackson is having Tommy John? It's not. I don't think it's for certain yet. Every article I've read is that it's assumed, but it's not for certain. I think they're probably going to try any route to get around it. But yeah, I think it's all but certain that Luke Jackson's going to have it. Richard Davis is going to give you the rundown of who's pitching. Thursday it's Fried. Friday it's Kyle Wright. And Saturday it is Enoa. I've seen where people laid it out. I haven't seen that. I thought it was for sure Fried and then Morton. But again, I very well might be wrong. Jorge says Trout might not even be the best player in baseball at the end of the season if he slips and Soto continues to become Ted Williams 2.0. Soto's good, but I think Soto's not a 5-tool, and I think Trout is. No matter what the year is, Trout's a 5-tool player. Soto's probably the best hitter in baseball, just hitter. But even then, it's hard to say who the best player is. I choose Trout just because he has been for so long, but also, he is a 5-tool player. I don't think Soto is that, right? I don't think Soto measures up to Trout in the field. I don't think, or the speed or, base running. There's a lot of intangibles that I think Trout has that a lot of other players don't, and I don't think Soto's there. If anybody's going to take over that spot, I actually think it's going to be Trout's teammate and Shohei Ohtani. But we'll see. I don't know for sure, but Soto's going to be made out to be great no matter what from media, but Soto's a great player. I don't think he's Trout, though. I don't think he's Ted Williams 2.0 either. I don't think he's going to hit 400 or anything like that. I mean, great player, great talent, great hitter, maybe the best hitter in baseball, just solely hitter. But at the same time, I don't think he's got as many tools as Ronald Acuna does, to tell you the truth. Better hitter than Acuna, yeah, probably better home run hitter than Acuna. But Acuna makes up for it. Granted, we got to see how he comes back from the injury. He makes up for it on the bases. He makes up for it in the field. And I don't think Soto can do that. And I don't think he'll ever be able to do that. But again, great hitter, but I don't think he's Trout. But good comment. Bill Gates, Seattle is a better team now and in the near future. Trout is constantly hurt and on the wrong side of 30. That I agree with. I don't know about Seattle necessarily, but I think in the near future they could be if the Angels don't do something now, which is why I think they're probably trying to do something now. Trout is hurt a good bit. He was hurt this year, obviously, but we'll see how the next few years go. I definitely think he's got at least 1 or 2 more years of being in his prime, but we'll see. Mab, is it safe to say that we can go ahead and start making fun of Mets fans for believing Mr. Glass, DeGrom, and old man Scherzer would actually stay healthy long enough for them to be a threat to the Braves? No, we're not going to make fun of Mets fans. We're just not. Even if I do agree with you, we're not going to do it. All right, William Freeman, I don't know why, but I'm most excited to watch Kyle Wright this season. Truly a make-or-break season for him. Just hoping he can give consistent quality. I definitely think this is his first year where we're actually going to be able to assess what he is and what he can be. I don't know if it's make or break. I think if he has a mediocre year, it's a mediocre year. At least that's a sign of improvement. He can give you consistent numbers to some degree. When I say mediocre, I mean like a 4 ERA, 3.50 ERA, and with maybe a 5-7 record or 7-5 record, something like that. Like I think at that point it's a sign of improvement, not necessarily a big sign of improvement, but like that wouldn't be make or break to me. I think make or break is if he has 2 starts, has a just a terrible opening, a couple of games, and it never gets any better. I think at that point, yeah, it's make or break. And if it's make, I think Ian Anderson is a good example of what making it is. But again, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I have high expectations for him in his career. I don't know about high expectations for the year, but in his career as a whole, I have high expectations. So we'll see if this is the year. I hope it is. John Hatton says Richard Rodriguez. Is that true? Did that really happen? I missed that. Hang on. I can't let that slide. I got to look that up. I don't want to say it in case it's wrong, but wow. Yeah, Richard Rodriguez, Danny Santana, and Jose Rondon, 80-game PED suspension. When did he test positive? Wow. That's surprising. Wow. So okay. So I'll just read this. This is from CBS Sports. Richard Rodriguez, who's 32, split last season between the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Atlanta Braves. Overall, he amassed a 2.94 ERA and a 4.20 strikeout to walk ratio. Unfortunately for Rodriguez, his performance cratered in other ways following a midseason trade to Atlanta. In 26 innings with the eventual World Series champions, he struck out just 3.1 batters per 9. It's worth noting that, if only by coincidence, Rodriguez's descent seemed to coincide with MLB's crackdown on grip enhancers. So, I mean, I don't know what the truth is behind that, but if he tested positive, that's interesting. He's banned for 80 games after testing positive for the substance boldenone, and I could be saying that wrong, an anabolic androgenetic steroid and synthetic derivative of a testosterone that was originally developed for veterinarian use, but has since become one of the most common performance-enhancing drugs that athletes test positive for in sports. Well, you hate to see that. I mean, you truly do. I mean, I don't know when he was doing it. He might have been doing it with the Braves. But obviously that's unfortunate for Richard Rodriguez, and to be honest with you, I'm just glad that the Braves don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I guess it's true. Yeah, John Hatton, I guess it's true. Thanks for commenting that, because I did not know that prior to you saying it. Asa Gonzalez says, I think Wright could pitch better than he Noah if spring training has been any indication. Yeah, but then Kyle Wright had a rough day yesterday, right? So it's hard to know. Like, spring training is never a big indication to me. I mean, if you have just an absolute great spring, like, some people earn their spot in spring. Some people lose their spot in spring. But to me, like, spring for normal players and for, like, just everyday players is not a big indication. Like, guys that are sure of their spot, like Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Charlie Morton, Max Fried, like, they're going to make it, right? Like, spring is no indication for me there. They're just working on their stuff. But for a guy like Kyle Wright, yeah, I would agree. Corey Carter. If the Braves are contending and in the playoffs, I see the talking heads manufacturing the narrative of, can the Braves win one without Freddie Freeman, and making that the focus. I'm going to give you a little bit behind the curtain at On Deck. I talked to my dad a good bit about the Braves just in general. And my dad's got a pretty good mind when it comes to baseball. Just in general, he's rubbed off a lot on me in terms of the interest there, obviously. But, he mentioned something yesterday that I think is true. The Braves need to get out to an early start. Specifically, Matt Olson and Marcell Ozuna need to get out to early starts. Ozuna, for obvious reasons, needs to, get the monkey off his back, so to speak. Matt Olson, I think I think Braves fans have done a great job of already embracing Matt Olson. I think that's important. I think that's been, honestly a pleasant surprise, because I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought it was going to take some time, and I thought it may never happen if he never, amounted to anything. Right now, he's got Braves fans on his side, but he's got to perform early on. I think Matt Olson's going to be great. Let me say that now. I think that he is going to be great, but at the same time, on the same side, I would like to see an early start. That way, there is no narrative of wow, Matt Olson's no Freddie Freeman, or look what we could have with Freddie Freeman had we just re-signed him. I don't want to hear that. I just don't. So I think it'd be great if he got to an early start. And in terms of Ozuna, I think he needs to get out to an early start. I think that needs to happen. But we'll see. It would be great if he had like 3 homers in 5 games, in the early part of the year. That would be great. Something like that, maybe in the first 5 games, right? But we'll see. Again, we'll see. Mab, Tyler, as a Braves fan, how much do you think the Blue Jays might regret paying Kevin Gausman, of all players, $110 million? Do they not realize his last 2 seasons were in the best pitcher park in baseball? I said when that happened, I have a Giants fan at work that I work with that you guys will probably see on my Instagram later this week because we talk baseball about every day. And he's super excited. He's an older man. He's super excited about opening day, and he's a very nice guy. Name's Ernest, and we talk baseball every day. He is a San Francisco Giants fan, and I told him that Kevin Gausman, this is about halfway through the year last year, Kevin Gausman would be smart to stay in San Francisco because his style of pitching works well in that park. It just does. He's a fly ball pitcher. Naturally, that's it's going to work well in that park. And I don't know that the Blue Jays, I could be wrong. I'm not all knowing, but I would be interested to see how that goes. And it's something to keep an eye on. I definitely think, $110 million, for however many years is a bit much for Kevin Gausman. Based on what we've seen with him. Now, look, I'm a big Kevin Gausman fan because he had, he took a fine to throw at Urania a few years ago. I appreciate him for that. I like Kevin Gausman a lot on the field too, but I think his best years is going to be his best year. Like when you look at the back of his baseball card, in the next few years, whenever he eventually retires. When you look at the back of his baseball card, I think his best year is going to be spent in San Fran, and I think he would have had a lot more like that if he had stayed there. But we'll see. He took his payday, and you can't blame him for doing that. But the Blue Jays, I have questions. We'll see. Maybe they know something we don't. We got a super chat, so I'm gonna have to stop what I'm doing. It's again from Robert Gall. Really do appreciate it, Robert. It says Matt Olson is going to be a fan favorite by the end of the year, guaranteed. Guy is a stud. He played in Oakland. Check stadium difference. Yeah, we've done that before. I don't remember. I remember it was a big difference specifically in right field, for sure. I'll look it up again. Why not? Since you super chatted, I'll do anything. Just about anything, anyway. Oakland Stadium dimensions. Or Oakland Coliseum. So left field's 330, left center 388, and center field's 400, right center 388, right field 330. So it's 330 down the line, and it is in right center 388. Let's look up Truist Park dimensions. I see a RLP. I'm going to have to wait a second. Yeah, so it's not a huge difference, I don't think. It's 325 down the right field line. It's 330 in Oakland. But I definitely think right field's going to be more of a hot spot for him because I think he's more of a pull hitter. Right center is 375 as opposed to 388. So, again, we'll see. It's not as big as you'd think. Early on, I thought it was a lot deeper, too. But I think I had the wrong information. I hate to move on from you, Robert, because I know we got you super chatted, and I really do appreciate it. But I definitely agree with you. Matt Olson is going to be a fan favorite by the end of the year. I think he already is. But he is a stud, and I think he's going to turn heads a lot because it's easy to like somebody who hits a lot of homers. But we'll see how it ages for sure. I think we're not really going to know how it's going to age until later on. All right, I hate to move on, but the Tigers apparently, according to RLP, the Tigers just went and got Meadows. Is that true? I don't see anything on the internet, so I'm going to have to pause on that. Let me know if you find anything, RLP. I trust you. All right. I'm going to tune back into the chat, but I hate to move on from you, but I'm going to have to, RLP. All right. Richard Davis, I imagine what happened last year to happen. The Braves never fell 10 games back. They weren't playing up to potential. They were young and getting better every day, and no one was running away with the division. I see it differently. I think the Braves actually will run away from the division. I think they are expected to run away from the division early on. I think that needs to happen. Personally, not to say that it will. I mean, every year's different. Injuries happen, things happen, bad things happen. So it's hard to know that it will. But I see the Braves. I see the Braves absolutely, not dominating necessarily, but I think they definitely are going to perform early on, and I think they're expecting to do that. All right, so thank you, William, thank you, RLP, I appreciate that. John Heyman tweeted Austin Meadows to Tigers, Paredes, and a draft pick to the Rays. That's obviously going to be official if it's coming from John Heyman. William sent me a tweet from Ken Rosenthal for Meadows. The Rays are getting shortstop Isaac Paredes and a competitive balance round B pick from the Tigers. All right, so the Tigers are looking like, and I've said this before, to me, the Tigers are looking like the next team that, similar to the Marlins, similar to where the Braves were a few years ago, that guys that are on the rebuild and guys that, are going to perform in a few years, but it's looking like they might want to win now. I don't know how long Austin Meadows' contract is for, but that's interesting. Thanks for the comment. Really do appreciate it, guys, keeping me up to date. Because it's hard for me to really keep an eye on everything, obviously, when I got all of my equipment locked in on a stream. So I really do appreciate like that. And any news you guys got, make sure to tell me. I try to keep an eye on both feeds. And, my phone's on the feed, my computer's here. I mean, I try to keep an eye on everything, but it is hard to do when I'm locked into a stream. So I really do appreciate it. But again, Austin Meadows is going to the Tigers, which is interesting. So we'll see. His contract, I want to see how long his contract's for. So, yeah, he's a free agent in 2025, so he's going to be around for a while. In 2021, he had a .234 batting average, 27 homers. Yeah, that's a big get for the Tigers. That's a huge get for the Tigers. We'll see, again, how it ages. Of course, he's an outfielder in DH. That is a huge get for the Tigers. And they're looking to be good for some time. And I think that's a smart move by them. Wow. All right. Corey Carter. Okay, sorry. Jorge says, even as Braves fans, do you think DeGrom's injuries are a tragedy? I really thought he could have been the GOAT when it came to pitchers. To be honest with you, DeGrom was on my fantasy team last year. Just to tell you up front, he was on my fantasy team last year. I like Jacob deGrom. I have no hard feelings when it comes to Jacob deGrom. Now, with that said, it's unfortunate for the game as a whole, I think. I don't view it as a tragedy because I don't think, tragedy is a strong word. So for me, it's... for me personally, I think that again, strong word, but I think it's unfortunate for the game. I thought it was unfortunate for the game when Trout went down. I think it's unfortunate, when Acuna goes down, obviously. I'm a Braves fan, but I'm a fan of the game. I don't want the Braves to win a World Series because everybody else is hurt, right? Like, I want there to be competitive play. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't forfeit, a great MLB season for that. I hate it when anybody gets hurt. I don't wish that on anybody, and I never will. Now with that said, is it good for the Braves in terms of winning? Probably. But at the same time, I mean, you're looking at what could be one of the greatest pitchers of all time in Jacob deGrom, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, obviously a great organization in the Mets in terms of pitching. I mean, the guys that they've had over the years. And not just recently, I mean, as far back as Tom Seaver, Nolan Ryan, I mean, they've had a lot of good pitchers in their day, and Jacob deGrom lines up right next to him. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, and for the Braves, it probably is going to help their early start at least. And if he's out for the year, half the year, whatever it is, it's unfortunate. But wish him the best, just like we wish Luke Jackson the best, and we'll go with that. So, Stellar Tyler, are you grabbing a gold jersey tomorrow? If so, what name are you going for? I ordered 3 jerseys a couple of weeks ago. I think I got just a throwback Murphy. I got a Bob Uecker jersey just because I like Bob Uecker, and I got a Rosario. You guys know I'm a big Rosario guy. I don't know if I'm going to get a gold jersey because I don't know how they look yet. I haven't seen them. I've been looking for them. I just haven't found it. But I may, depending again on how they look. But I've got so much Braves merch. Honestly, like it's ridiculous. I got enough jerseys. And to be honest with you, I don't live in Atlanta, so I can't get up to the clubhouse store. I may order one if they're doing that. But I got a lot right after the Braves finish the season, so we may spend the money. I don't know yet. Let me know what jersey you guys are getting, and maybe you'll help me make my decision. Dwight Cornell, thank you for reading my comment, Tyler. You make a great point. Let's just win another World Series. Thank you for watching, Dwight. Really do appreciate it for sure. Jorge says, Rays are the Forrest Gump of baseball, and they'll still win. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, they're constantly rebuilding. You never know what you're going to get, right? So, I don't know about the Rays winning this year. I mean, they definitely are smart in what they have to do. I wish they would spend a little bit more money because I think they could actually win a World Series or two. And somehow they just continue to do it, and I think it's impressive, but like Jeff Nelson says below there, I don't think it can hold up over time. But we'll see. Dick Bick, I love how MLB has the Braves at 8th on the power rankings for the season. They have the Astros at 7 and the Brewers at 4th, and we just beat them decisively. Sounds about right how they disrespect the Braves every season. I don't know what algorithm they use. I don't know what mathematical equation they use. I truly don't. With that said, whatever they do not have a good read on the Braves because they didn't pick the Braves to win the division any year that they did in the past 4 or 5, where however many years you want to go back. They did not pick the Braves to win the division not one time, including the World Series run. Now, I'm not saying they necessarily deserve to be chosen every year, but that's a bad read 3 years in a row. I mean, to me, it's simple. Who's the team to beat? Look around Major League Baseball. Ask yourself, who's the team to beat? In the National League, it's the Braves. In the American League, it's the Astros. In all of Major League Baseball, who won the World Series? To me, it's simple. I don't care about the preseason ratings. I think that's a social media campaign. I don't really put any real thought into it, to tell you the truth. I think it's honestly stupid a lot of the time, and I'm not calling out MLB. I don't think they're intentionally trying to disrespect the Braves. I think they're trying to stir up interest in those other markets, and it is what it is. MLB seems to do well when the Dodgers do well. I think we all can figure that out. They seem to do well when the Yankees do well. I think we can all figure out why. Now, with that said, is it fair? No. Is it right? Probably not. But at the same time, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the social media bias is definitely a real thing when it comes to the Braves, and I don't understand it. I mean, Freddie Freeman hasn't been this popular any time he's ever been with the Braves, including when he won the MVP. So I don't get it. I don't know why they're doing it, but it is definitely a thing in my opinion. So Jameson says, yeah, the Braves need to announce their presence with authority to the division. Yeah, I think so too. And I think they're going to. There's no, and look, every year's different. You might have, the Phillies could go on a major run early in the year. I don't think the Nationals are. I don't think the Marlins are. But again, every year's different. You might have a team outright surprise you. You just never know. But with that said, I think, To me, there's no logical sense in assuming any other team's going to be a lot better than the Braves, at least early on in the year, because the Mets don't have Scherzer and DeGrom. The Nationals got rid of everybody last year. The Marlins are still the Marlins, right? The Phillies are the only one that I'm like, maybe. But even them, I'm like, no, because they didn't, they competed with the Braves last year. They made it interesting, but I don't view them as competition right now. AC Gonzalez says Contreras will DH versus left-handed pitching and Dickerson versus right-handed pitching. That is per David O'Brien. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been trying to read up on Contreras a good bit, but he's kind of, it's not a major topic, so it's kind of hard to find a lot of stuff on. I've been looking through Twitter. David O'Brien's one of the few voices I actually trust on stuff like that. But even then, we'll see how it, that might be the plan, but I don't know that that's going to be what actually happens. Joshua Estes says, why didn't they keep Adrianza? Why didn't they keep, Chavez? Why didn't they keep, Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler? I think we can ask that all day long. I think that's a fair question, especially considering the depth questions that we have. And who we're considering putting in the outfield and who we're considering, all of that. I don't think that they assumed, I don't think Adrianza was necessarily a big target because he didn't have a lot of at-bats towards the end of the year. He had some key at-bats later in the year, but he didn't have a lot of them. He wasn't one of their major guys to go to for a pinch hitter. He was one of, but he wasn't, the guy. And that's no disrespect to Adrianza. I think Adrianza, is a lot better than on paper he seems to be, to tell you the truth. But at the same time, I don't think he was their biggest target. I think they had a lot of problems, obviously dealing with the Freddie situation and who they wanted to go after there. But also they had to figure out, okay, if we're not going to get Freddie, what are we going to do? Okay, do we want Soler? We want Rosario, so they had to go get. I think they just had a lot of things to get through. And I don't think Adrianza was necessarily a priority, and I don't think they view the bench as priority. That's why I think you're seeing Contreras and Dickerson arguing over who's going to be, or not arguing over, but competing for who's going to be DH. So I just don't think they view it as a priority. I don't think they need to. I think the lineup's plenty good, whether or not we got pinch hitters or not. But that's something I think that could be dealt with at the trade deadline if necessary. Richard Davis says Upton has 4 homers this spring, 1 game, 2 homers, and 6 RBIs. That's interesting. But even then, I still think that, I don't have a problem with Upton. I really don't. He was one of my favorite players as a kid. But even then, I don't think the Braves are really going to want to put it out there. Again, it could happen. Not saying it couldn't happen. But it's hard. It's hard to tell. It really is. I don't know. I hate to say I don't know, but I don't think so. I just don't. Richard Davis, I think players released like Upton have to take the league minimum to go out and sign another contract. I think this year, that is. I don't know if they have to take league minimum. I think Pujols might have taken league minimum, but I don't know for sure. At all. So we'll see what he does. We'll see if he might hang him up. We really don't know. Bill Gates wants to know who I got in the NCAA championship game tonight. I think I'd be dumb to not go. I know I'm answering this question late, but the game's already going on. I'm keeping an eye on it. I think I'd be dumb to not go with the North Carolina right now, but I probably would have went with them either way. They are playing, right? Yeah, I think I'm going North Carolina because they are winning 38-23 at the moment. So, but even then, it is March Madness. We got a super chat, so I'm going to stop what I'm doing and go to that. That is from Jorge. Why is it so difficult to repeat in baseball? Well, for one, it's not college football, right? It's not, as, football to me is a lot more of a consistent sport because you don't have a whole lot changing. You're going to have the same QB. You're going to have a lot of the same players if you're on a good team, right? Not if you're the Falcons, but a lot of the times you're going to have good players. And, you're going to have consistency there. And you're going to have the same formula. You're going to have all that. With baseball, it's a lot more of an unpredictable sport. Think about it. You got to hit a ball coming just from the simplest way I can put it. You have to hit a baseball coming at you at 102 miles per hour, whatever it is, right? 97, moving in all different directions. You got to get 9 guys in a lineup to be able to do that. You got to, there's some days where pitching wins. There's some days when hitting wins. You got so much turnover in baseball, especially these days. Look at one of the few teams that actually did repeat. The last one to repeat was the Yankees, I think in 96, in 97, or maybe even later than that, maybe even 98. It was the Yankees, though. Think about what they were in the 90s. You had some familiar faces. Jorge Posada, Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera. They had, those guys in the 90s that were regulars. Back in the 70s with the Reds, you had the Big Red Machine, right? There was so much consistency back then because you didn't have a lot of people going to free agency, and I think that's how you build a successful team for a long time. And I think that's what the Braves are doing, right? Like the Dodgers, they're doing it too, I guess, but they're spending a lot of money to do it. But a lot of these other teams are going for 1-year pushes instead of going for what the Braves and, frankly, what the Dodgers have done. And even the Astros, they just lost a lot of players like Carlos Correa and such, but they had teams that were ultimately consistent for a lot of years. And when I say consistent, I just mean as results. I mean as the actual guys on the field. They built that, squad, and it was a squad that stayed together for a long time. Now, the Dodgers have been able to do that. They've gotten a World Series out of it. Maybe should have 2 if you look at 2017. The Braves, I think, have a very good chance at repeating. Granted, they have a lot of questions they need to answer, but they do have a good chance of repeating. Not a guarantee, but it would be interesting, to say the least. We suck. No, we don't. Says I have a weird feeling Ozuna might ball out this year. I've had that sneaky suspicion too, and that's really why I want to see him perform early on. I really want to see him. I really want to see him. Frankly, he needs to ball out early because I think he needs to, not to say win the public over, because I think that's kind of a crap way to look at it, but I think he does need to win the public over. A lot of people wanted him gone, and, he apologized. I think he wants to ball out. I mean, the dude won the Dominican League MVP, and, you take that for what it is, but that is something. It says that he's at least stayed in shape. He came in underweight of what he usually is by a lot, so I think he's in shape. I think he wants to perform. I think he wants to prove to the fans and to the team that he can still be, that he can still perform. But that's one of the reasons why I need to see him perform early. And I mentioned, Olsen earlier in the same regard, and we've talked about this a couple of times, but, I really want to see both of those guys perform, because if they don't, I think you're going to start hearing the questions of, why didn't we just keep Freddie? Why didn't we trade Ozuna? I don't want to hear that. I want them to prove Alex Anthopoulos right. I want them to prove the organization right. And I think a lot of that falls on the shoulders of Ozuna, for better or for worse. We Suck also says, I have a feeling Freddie will not produce Freddie Freeman numbers for the Dodgers this year. I definitely think the power numbers are going to go down in LA. I mean, just from a lefty moving out there, I think the numbers could go down, not by a ton. It'll be interesting to see how the numbers translate from one year to the next when you're moving teams like that, moving stadiums for Freddie. But I don't know that I don't know that they're drastically going to go down from one year to the next. I think you'll see it drastically go down maybe in 4. But I definitely think the power numbers are going to go down. Jameson wants to bring up a non-Braves topic, but how nice is it that we do not have to hear... Oh, geez. I'm not talking bad about no journalists. Y'all leave me out of that. Walter Horner Jr., I think the Braves will be fine once they get Acuna back. Is it true now that the pitchers no longer bat? If I just heard that correctly, you were saying nothing. National League did put in the DH. Yes, the National League did put in the DH. We are doing that this year. It's definitely true, and take that for what it is. I think it's unfortunate because we're never going to get to see, we're likely never going to get to see Max Fried hit a home run in the major leagues, which I was actually looking forward to seeing. We've been taking bets at the house for the past few years about when that's going to happen. So it would have been nice to see, but at the same time, I understand why Major League Baseball made that decision. not that I even like it, because much like Marvin Freeman said the other day, like him, I am a purist in a lot of ways. I don't like the game messed with. I never liked the 3-batter minimum. I never liked the runner on second in extra innings. I've just never liked that. But at the same time, when it comes to the DH, I understand the game having to move forward and evolve. I get that. And more players want to see, or not more players, more fans want to see home runs. I get that. But I also think there's a lot of strategy in having the pitcher bat. And I'm going to miss that to some degree. I'm curious to see, and let me know if you've already played. I'm curious to see if MLB The Show is going to adapt their rules and have DH, because in MLB The Show, even when they adapted it for the past couple of years, they've had the pitcher bat. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But right now, they're not having a DH, or they are having a DH. Sorry. Map, Tyler, no team is going to pay Justin Upton $1 million next year. Whoever signs him will pay the league minimum until they release him. The Angels will pay the rest. It's just about who Upton wants to play for. Sure, but at the same time, I think Upton can perform, to some degree and be in. A lot of people thought Pujols was done, and then he found a home with the Dodgers and now with the Cardinals. I think Upton could actually, do something. Whether it's come off the bench or whatever, against lefties. I think that would be good to see. I think he can perform. I just need the strikeout numbers to go down. And I think that's his biggest issue right now. We Suck says Acuna is great, but this team has shown they can still ball without him. Completely agree. He also says that I really felt Jocktober was our lucky charm this year. I think he brought, Jock Peterson brought a lot of good energy to the Braves. And I've said this... I've said this a lot since he left, but I never saw him returning to the Braves. And I think a lot of people would understand what I'm saying there. A lot of people wanted Jock back because of what he did for the Braves and what he brought to the Braves, and I get that. But I think he'll have a lasting impact even when he's gone. I think what he did for the bullpen, specifically the night shift, and saying that, hey, you were the guys that are going to bring us a World Series, did wonders for their confidence and wonders for their future. And I think that says a lot about Jock. I think the letter he wrote was absolutely fantastic. And I think, again, the energy he brought was fantastic. Now, with that said, I never saw him returning. As much as I like Jock Peterson, I truly do. I was a big fan of the Pearls and all that stuff. I was there when he hit the homer against the Brewers in Game 3 of the NLDS. I like Jock Peterson a lot. With that said, I never saw him returning because I didn't think that it was necessary. Where would you put him in the outfield? Would you take him or Rosario? So for me, it's Rosario any day of the week. But I like Jock a lot, and I think you're right. I think to some degree he was a lucky charm. And again, I think he brought a lot of good energy. I just didn't think it was going to be past 2021. Corey Carter, Dodgers traded Pollock because they needed a spot for Chris Taylor to start. Excess in the lineup and thin in the pen. Yep. I completely agree. And I definitely think adding Kimbrel is going to be a pretty good replacement for Kenley Jansen. Take your pick with that. I'm cool with either one, really. I would have liked to have gotten Kimbrel just because, of the past he's had with the Braves and the fan service that would be. But you know what? Kenley Jansen wants to be there, and I think that says a lot. I think he's going to become a fan favorite to some degree. He's a Curacao kid, much like Andrew Jones once was, much like Ozzie Albies is. I think he's going to fit well with that crew in terms of Ozzie Albies and Acuna. I think that he's going to fit in well. I would have liked, if we had gotten Kimbrel as opposed to getting Jansen, I would have been fine with it, but I'm really okay with either one. And I think he, again, is going to fit in well. So as much as I would have liked to have gotten Kimbrel, I'm really okay with Kenley Jansen without a doubt. So, let me see. Richard Davis says, Miguel Frica. Sorry, let me not skip him. Hey, Tyler, why the Braves are too low in MLB? Okay. Why are the Braves ranked number 8 across the MLB power rankings? I think the Braves' main weakness is their starting rotation. I agree. But I think it's something that could prove to not be that big of a weakness over time, and depending on how Wright and Noah develop. And frankly, I think even still how Ian Anderson develops. I think it's going to say a lot. But I agree with you. And at the same time, I talked about it a second ago. The MLB is not MLB, but the MLB social media presence is weird when it comes to how they promote teams versus another team, right? They don't give a lot of love to the low markets. They don't give a lot of love to the Braves for some reason. I don't really understand it. But they do to the Dodgers. They do to the Yankees. I think they do to the Angels now. And it's because of what cities they're in, and it just is what it is. They even give it to the Mets. So that is what it is. But we'll see. Richard Davis says Wright is the number 2. He is going to pitch on Friday. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, and I'm okay with that. That's a matchup, decision, and I'm okay with that. And to be honest with you, it gives you the opportunity to have Morton on the back end and give you a different, look on the back end. But we'll see what happens there. I think only time will tell how their starting rotation is going to be. All right, John Kruger says, we don't want Fultonevich, way too wild. Yeah, I think that's where we're at. And he hasn't had very good years since he left the Braves. And look, I'm a Fulte fan. I liked Fulte a lot when he was with the Braves. I mean, I said that earlier. I am a Fulte fan. I met him. He's always very good to me. I mean, it's hard not to like him for me. But at the same time, like, it's just I don't see a spot for him, and to be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me if he hung him up. To tell you the truth, let me see. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry guys, it skipped ahead. Give me just a second. I'm almost back. All right. A lot of you guys tuning in tonight. Really do appreciate it. Hope you've liked the video and, of course, subscribe to the channel. That always helps. And always do appreciate a new subscriber and new conversations to be had. All right. Let me see. Richard Davis, Tampa Bay announcers were saying that Anderson didn't throw over 92 today. Whether that was on purpose or not, he only knows. He left early because of his big toe, they said. Yeah, hard to know. Again, spring training is such a weird... It's one of my favorite parts of the year, but it's also like I don't think a lot of people realize how much is like it's the information's faulty a lot of the way. It's just it's a lot of he said she said. It's a lot of assumptions. It's it's not as documented as the regular season is, especially not the postseason. But it's not near as clear as actually what's going on and really how much stuff matters. Because let's just say for giggles here, let's just say that Ian Anderson took the mound tomorrow, and he was only allowed to throw fastballs, and he got absolutely shelled. Right? I mean, what does that say? I'm more concerned, is he hitting the spots at that point, right? Like, it's just not as documented. It's you can't take a result either, because a lot of the time it's major leaguers versus minor leaguers, or minor leaguers versus minor leaguers. It's just really hard to decipher what means something in spring training. I'm more concerned about the development of young talent, and I'm more concerned about is everybody healthy? And I think when you look at it like that, the Braves are going to be fine. Bill Gates, this is interesting. The Braves are going to face top pitching prospect Hunter Greene in the first series against the Reds. What are your expectations for the big, hard-throwing right-hander? Well, he's going to have a fun ride against the Braves, isn't he? I mean, like, that's one heck of a lineup to face in your first. I know a little bit about him, to tell you the truth, but very little. Obviously, like, my main focus is always on the Braves, without a doubt. But I think the Reds have a lot to be excited about when it comes to Hunter Greene. He was drafted in 2017. He's round 1, second overall pick. He's caught a lot of attention. I mean, for me to hear about him and not, really watch that organization at all, hardly. I mean, he is definitely something that's going to be fun to watch. He's got a 3.30 ERA in 2021 across minor leagues, 10-8. 139 strikeouts in 106 innings. So, yeah, I don't know what that strikeout rate is, but it's more than one strikeout an inning as a starter. So, I have high expectations for him, I would assume. Again, I don't follow, the Reds that closely. I wish I could, but I just don't. But I think he's going to have a tough time getting to the Braves lineup, and if he doesn't, that would be an interesting thing. But we'll see. RLP, you're asking a question a lot of other people have asked, but I'll be glad to answer it. He says, how many Braves have the potential for a 40-plus home run season? Depending on when he comes back, Ronald Acuna. Ozzie Albies if he only hits left-handed. Austin Riley. Matt Olson. That's 4. He's catchers. It's hard to pick catchers. Adam Duvall. So I'm gonna go 5, and I think if Dansby got consistent, I think he could, but I'm sticking with 5. I'm gonna go Olsen, Duvall, Acuna if he's healthy, Ozzie if he only hits left-handed, and Riley. That's what I'm going with. So 5. Appreciate the question, by the way. Thanks, John. I see you're signing off. Thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to try to answer as many as I can. I know we're getting late. I try to go as long as I can on these things, but we'll see how late we go. Jeff Nelson says, Acuna needs to stop going to the extreme in the outfield. Hard to do, but he'll be better off physically if he can dial it back a notch. I think, it's easy to say that. I think this has definitely been a learning experience for him, for sure. The play where he got hurt on, it was such a weird one because you could tell he was trying extremely hard to get there, and it really wouldn't have been that big of a deal had he missed it. And I think that comes with maturity and that kind of thing. Hopefully he bounces back and he learns from it, and we don't have to see this again later on. But I agree with you there to some degree, but it's easier to say from from not to say we're a couch potato, but it's easy to say from the couch, you guys shouldn't be doing as hard as you are. You should be trying harder, whatever the situation may be. It's really easy to say that. But even then, I get what you're saying completely. Hopefully he matures and learns from it. Bill Gates, Trout is the... Oh, geez. I'm going to need a sip of drink on this one. Trout is the most overrated superstar in history. He walks 100 times, and that's considered the greatest center fielder ever. Shaking my head. I don't necessarily agree with you here. I think Trout has more than proven himself over the years. I think he's one of the greatest center fielders of all time, and I think he's probably the greatest player of his generation. Now, with that said, a little bit overrated. I mean, I get how you get to that conclusion, but I think anytime you're talking about somebody that could be potentially the greatest player ever, you're naturally going to have some, you're naturally going to have some over, some overrated, conversations, right? Like, comparing him to Willie Mays, comparing him to, guys like that, like guys that played 50 years ago, is kind of hard. I never liked those conversations, like comparing Barry Bonds to Hank Aaron, like, I don't really like to get into that, but I don't agree with that take, but he is a great player, and that's hard to say. I mean, I compare players across their generation, and there is no one, if I'm picking a team right now, out of his generation, out of who's playing right now, there is no one I'm picking over Mike Trout in center field. There's just no one, but we'll see. William's going to chime in on the super chat and give me an update on the NCAA championship. Tar Heels are up at 15 at the half, just FYI. Appreciate that, William. I'm not making any bets on that. I don't have any bets on that, but I appreciate you keeping me updated for sure. Let me see. Daniel Fowler, he says he also disagrees with you, Bill. Trout is amazing. What about him isn't amazing? Look at his stats. I agree there. Isn't he how many MVPs does Trout have? I know this is kind of off topic, but we're here now, so I'm going to look at it. I mean, in 2021, he had 8 homers, 333 average across 36 games. I mean, he had 8 homers in 36 games. His last full season, he had 45. And a 291 average. I mean, yeah, the dude's still good. I mean, he's had a couple of, obviously last year getting hurt didn't help, but the dude's a 3-time MVP, Rookie of the Year, 9-time All-Star, 8-time Silver Slugger, Minor League Player of the Year, 2-time All-Star MVP, Wilson overall Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he's the best center fielder of his generation. That's easy to see for me. I don't, I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I don't really get that, honestly, there, Bill. I appreciate the comment, though. Jeff Nelson, we need Soroka back to where he was, and we'll probably be strong contenders, we'll be pretty strong contenders. I'm interested to see what Soroka's going to be as well. I think Soroka coming back would be it'd be like a major free agency pickup. That's how I look at Soroka. I don't expect him to be great, but I sincerely hope he is, because it would mean major things for the future of the year and for the future of the Braves. Hey guys, appreciate you guys tuning in. While you're here, make sure to like the video. That really helps me out a ton. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Richard Davis. Richard Davis says, people forget Freeman was bad the past 3 years in the playoffs before last year. Let Freeman go. Easy to say that. Freddie Freeman, has proven himself in Atlanta by a lot of, by a lot of standards. And there's going to be that fan base that loves Freddie Freeman to the end of time. I respect Freddie Freeman, but I definitely do think it's time to, I definitely do think that it's time to move on for sure. Miguel Frica says, I think that Alex Anthopoulos made a big mistake for not signing Freeman. He's killing spring training over 368 average plus OPS over 1,000. Olsen, ? Well, Olsen does have 2 homers. You can say what you want. They're 2 very different players. And, you can say what you want about Alex Anthopoulos. Alex Anthopoulos wasn't really given a whole lot of choice, in his mind. And to be honest with you, I think you're kind of, and I don't mean this in any, negative way, but I think you're kind of in the minority here, because I think a lot of people are on the Olsen train. And not to say you're wrong because of that, just because it's popular opinion doesn't mean, it's the right one. But I think Alex Anthopoulos did what he could with Freddie. And I've kind of moved past that. I think the more I hear about it, the more I see Alex Anthopoulos' point of view. But I get what you're saying here. I mean, Freeman's killing spring training and all that. I get it. But at the same time, it's spring training. It's spring training. I think Freddie will have a great year, to tell you the truth. I just wonder what's going to happen in the next 4 to 5. That's where I think you look at Alex Anthopoulos and say, is it a big mistake, or is Freddie making a big mistake? I think they would both tell you they both made mistakes here. To some degree. I think Alex Anthopoulos did the best he could without re-signing Freddie Freeman. And I think Freddie Freeman is happy with exactly how Chipper said it. I think Freddie Freeman is happy with what is second best. And that's not being an Atlanta Brave anymore. So, the more I hear about it, the more I think it was a Freddie thing, Miguel. I get what you're saying here, but at the same time, think about all the money we saved to get a player that's more than comparable and has, more years. That he can be, comparable to what Freddie Freeman is now. So we'll see. I think Matt Olson's about to hit his prime. So we'll see. Jeff Nelson said Ozuna had an awesome offseason in Dominican ball. He'll be fine. I think so too. And I think there's a mindset with Ozuna that he obviously wants to prove himself for sure. I definitely think that there's, some regret there in terms of, letting the team down and that kind of thing and all of that. Like we can talk about that, as any time we want to, but I think Ozuna is going to prove himself this year, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of folks. Richard Davis, if DeGrom and Max Scherzer are injured, Cueto goes there. Wow, maybe. I haven't really thought about that, to tell you the truth. I think they have a pretty good rotation on paper, don't they? The Mets. I've looked at it like 10 times, and I can never remember who the other guys are. But I know they're pretty. I know it's a pretty good rotation as a whole. Is Chris Bassett in that rotation? Yeah, Taijuan Walker. I mean, they got some guys. Carlos Carrasco. I mean, Chris Bassett, Carlos Carrasco, and Taijuan Walker, I think are going to hold that rotation up to some degree. But I think without Scherzer and DeGrom, they lose the elite aspect. And it's not like their bullpen is knocking down doors. They got Seth Lugo, Adam Ottavino, Trevor May, Trevor Williams. I mean, they got guys, but I still think the Braves, as a whole are the better team. Now, look, they can still compete. They're a major league team, and they can still compete and give the Braves trouble. But if I had to pick a winner of the division right now, if you put a gun to my head or made me bet my entire life savings on it, I'm going Braves. And I mean that sincerely. I think the Mets have potential. I think they had potential last year and they lost it. So I mean, until they prove me wrong, I'm probably going Braves. Jameson says, "What did the Tampa Bay Rays get back in return for Meadows?" Just wondering. They got back. Let me see. They got infielder Isaac Paredes and a competitive balance B pick in the 2022 draft. I wanted to make sure I got that right. But yeah, they got Paredes and a draft pick. So, I mean, I think the Rays, are obviously, they're rebuilding, I guess, again, and they'll just keep on going. Jeff Nelson, Olsen can rake, big power, average maybe 260 to 70, but 48 home runs and over 100 RBIs will be nice. I agree. I think, I've compared Freddie Freeman and Olsen so much that I'm kind of, not saying I'm tired of it, but I'm a little tired of it. Freddie's a great player, no doubt about it, and Olsen's a great player, no doubt about it, but they're two different players. Freddie hits for more average, Olsen hits for more homers. And you can, whatever you like, and that's what you like. Personally, I don't really care either way as long as they perform and drive in runs. I don't really care either way. But I think the common sense is one of them can do it for cheaper and for longer, and that's an Olsen. So if you take all emotion out, if you take all connection of Freddie Freeman out, it is the right decision by Alex Anthopoulos. Like, in my opinion, it is the absolute right decision. With that said, is it the decision that fans are going to like all the time? No. Is it the decision that I think will win fans over? Yes. Would I have liked Freddie Freeman to stay with the Braves? Absolutely. But do I understand why Alex Anthopoulos did it? Yeah. And I think we've been through that. I think we've talked that into the ground in a lot of ways. And I know we're going to have to do that for a while, maybe even into next year. I hope not. I hope we can move on. But, I mean, I think a lot of people are probably tired of hearing me talk about it to some degree because I get the comments. It's hard to talk about Matt Olson right now without talking about Freddie Freeman. And sorry, I got to get a sip. But it's hard to talk about Matt Olson without talking about Freddie Freeman. And a lot of people take that as I'm only talking about Freddie Freeman when in reality I'm talking about Matt Olson. And, I get comments all the time. Stop talking about Freddie. Let it go. Some of you guys might be commenting that now. But, a lot of people still want to talk about Freddie. And I hate to say it, but, the same people that were commenting let Freddie go were the same people clicking on the video to watch it. So, I mean, it's still a hot topic. It's still a topic people care about whether or not they want to admit it or not. And it's going to be something that we talk about for a while. And it's going to be something that I think 10 years from now we reflect on and say, was that the right deal? Was that the right move? So, I think it's going to age well for the Braves. I hope it ages well for the Braves. Again, I hate that we lost, a fundamental player the last decade or more. But at the same time, I think Alex Anthopoulos did what he had to do. All right, moving on. What are your predictions on Ian Anderson? Ian Anderson, I think, is a guy that has had a bit of an up and down early start to his career because, I mean, this year, I mean, he came in and was solid, right? I guess in about 2019 or 2020 he came up. I don't really remember. I want to say it was 2020. Yeah, 2020 he came up. He had a 1.95 ERA across, 6 games in the regular season, and he had a pretty good postseason, right? So he was kind of forced into his role there in a lot of ways, and take that for what it is. But in 2021, he got hurt. He had a 3.58 ERA across 24 games. 9-5 record. I mean, he's being solid. I need to see. I want to see a year that he's not hurt. A little bit more. It's just a consistency overall. But I mean, the thing I want to see out of Ian Anderson, and I've said this before. I don't mind saying it again. The thing I really want to see out of Ian Anderson, he had 100. I need to see more innings in a game. Right, like he's got good stuff. He keeps runs down. His ERA is good. That's not the problem. The problem is it's only good for 4 or 5 innings. I want to see 6, 7 and save the pen a little bit more. And, with the lack of starting pitching right now, I need him to step up and do that. we'll see if that's what's going to happen. But my prediction, prediction's a weird word. My hope is that that's what happens. He keeps his ERA and maybe even lessens it and goes a little bit longer in games because I think he struggles with that sometimes. I mean, even in the postseason, I remember he got pulled out in like the third or fourth inning to bring in a pinch hitter because they weren't necessarily confident. I don't want that to be the case. I want it to be that we're confident you can go 6 innings, and not give up more than a run or two. That's what I hope for Ian Anderson. So we'll see how it goes, but that's what my biggest hope is. Richard Davis says Upton might be going to Boston. He might be going anywhere, Richard. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, right? Like, I think a lot of people, share those, like, all the time. And what I do, I see tweets, I see Facebook posts, theories about where folks are going. I don't really dive too deep into that. I used to a lot more. Like, I remember doing videos, will Nolan Arenado come to the Braves? Will Josh Donaldson come to the Braves? Will so-and-so come to the Braves? And I kind of dove into that for a while, but then I realized, like, there's so much, behind the scenes that we're never going to know, that it's really hard to predict. It's hard to be accurate, and to be honest with you, I would rather be accurate. What I'm getting here is, just don't believe everything you see on the internet. I mean, he very well might be going to Boston, but like I said, he might be going to the Dodgers. He might be going to, the Marlins. I mean, who really knows, right? So we'll see. Again, it's just something that's going to have to wait. But Mad Map says, Tyler, I have the 5th pick of my 20-team fantasy league in 2 days. Who are your top 5 fantasy picks? It's a point league, no categories. I think Ohtani's never a bad pick. Soto and Vlad would all be gone by the time I draft. Well, don't go get DeGrom. I can't tell you. I got my team here. I can just read you off who I got, but I want to say I had like the 7th or 8th pick. And these are in no particular order. I can't remember who I picked first. Oh, no, I picked Corbin Burns first. I went pitching, and then I think I got Shane Bieber, and I actually got Zach Wheeler on the back end. Charlie Morton I picked up, Josh Hader. I mean, I got a lot of guys, in pitching. Now, in terms of my fielders, Rutschman, Muncy, Ketel Marte, Ryan McMahon, Chris Taylor, Nick Castellanos, Byron Buxton. I like that one. Jock Peterson, Eduardo Escobar, and Jeff McNeil. I actually went and got Seiya Suzuki, Suarez, Charlie Blackmon, Biggio, and Yadier Molina as my backup catcher. So I think I did pretty good. We'll see how it goes, but just go with that. I mean, you know who's good. I mean, all drafts are different. It's hard to tell, but I mean, like I said, Ohtani's never a bad pick if you can get him, and really none of those picks are bad. If you want to go for a Brave, I don't think Matt Olson's a bad pick. I don't think Ozzy's a bad pick. I think Riley would be a pretty consistent pick. I got Charlie Morton, but I always go pitching heavy first, which may or may not be smart, but a lot of other guys, like you said, go after the Ohtanis, the Sotos, and the Vlads. So I always usually go for pitching, and last year it was DeGrom, this year it was Corbin Burns. So we'll see how it goes, and good luck to you and your fantasy picks. Jeff Nelson, DeGrom, and the other guys that are power pitchers put too much stress on their arms. Very few have the physic, I don't know what you're going there, of Nolan Ryan that can hold up over time. Yeah, I mean, Nolan Ryan's kind of an oddity though, right? I mean, Nolan Ryan's kind of a one in a, in a bunch. I mean, he's one in a million in a lot of ways. I think DeGrom is like Freed really reminds me of like what Sandy Koufax was. I think he modeled himself a lot after Sandy Koufax. I think Jacob DeGrom, like you said, is a lot like Nolan Ryan and maybe even Tom Seaver to some degree. But I don't know that he's going to last over a long time. I think he's lasted over, some other time. But Nolan Ryan was just different. I mean, even when he was like 68, he was throwing 70, 80 miles an hour, down the chute on the first pitch. So it's hard to tell. But I agree with you. I think Nolan Ryan was just a different animal, though. And I don't think you should judge, everybody based on Nolan Ryan, right? Like, same way you don't judge every basketball player by Shaq or by MJ, right? Like, you have to take them for what they are and how they are in their generation. And that's kind of how I go about things. RLP says, Mad, get a catcher in your first 2 picks. Yeah, that probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Jeff, never mind. Robert Gall says, get an Olsen jersey because he's here for the long haul. I don't necessarily disagree. Danilo says, 8th ranking position. Disrespect. Agreed. Jeff Nelson, stay competitive all the regular season and then get hot late. Yeah, that seems to be how they won last year. Bill Gates, that's why the Astros took the fall for sign stealing when LA Dodgers and New York Yankees were stealing signs too. Yeah, you don't really hear too much about that unless you're watching TikTok or something where you're hearing other sources. You're not going to hear a lot about that in the media. Tyler says, do you think if Ozzie stopped switch hitting, he could be a better hitter? Yes. His splits from the right side are way better than his left. Last year he hit a bomb righty on righty too. I want to say he did it in the postseason. Like he didn't switch hit in the postseason, which I think says a lot. He's definitely more comfortable from the left side. I think he can hit more homers from the left side no matter which way he's hitting against. But there is definitely an advantage to switch hitting if you can do it, but his swing is really slow on the right side. It's just not as fast. I mean, he gets base hits. It's just not as consistent as I think he is on the left. I'd like to see him try it, staying left. I mean, look at what happened with Cedric Mullins, right? I mean, like it's just, it'll be interesting. I don't know. I would like to see it personally. I mean, we talk about it at the house a good bit. If Ozzie would just stop switch hitting, he'd be a lot better. He could be an MVP candidate. I mean, I really think that. Not to say that it's going to happen, but I really think that if that was the case, it could happen. But again, we'll see. Like I said, I mean, who knows? But it'll be interesting to see for sure. Jeff Nelson says Soler was a complete surprise. He may not be able to put up the same numbers. He always had power, but average was low. And that's exactly why I wanted Rosario. Like, I really wanted Rosario because he is the complete opposite of that. He's got the average. He's got, the consistency. And he's got power if need be. And a good example is this video right here where he's hitting that 3-run homer in the postseason. But, he's got power when he needs it, but he could get on base. He could get a base hit when necessary. And that's what I really liked about Rosario. That was the fundamental reason why I wanted to get Rosario over Soler, over Jock Peterson, over, whoever you can think of. I wanted Rosario, and that's why. And, and I'm glad I decided to say that because obviously it aged out to be correct. I mean, 259 average, doesn't jump off the page, but keep in mind he was hurt a lot of last year, and that is what it is. But I definitely think AA made the right decision in getting Rosario for sure. Dig Bick says, long season, injuries, slumps, and bad luck. Yeah, that's in response to Jorge's question about why is it so hard to repeat. But yeah, I agree. Let me see. I'm trying to keep up. A lot of you guys are having conversations between yourselves. Good to see you, Tyler D. Of course, it skips. Kind of behind, aren't I? David Surlees just asked, did you hear about the trade between the Tigers and the Rays? We actually just got done talking about it. I hope you were here for it. I know I'm kind of behind, so I hope you were here for it. RLP says, MLB 22, the show, no full-time DH, online pitcher, still bats. Good. That gives me an easy way out of a bad situation. Jeff Nelson, Adam Duvall contributed a lot, but very few people mention him. Well, part of it was, Adam Duvall is kind of a quiet guy, and I think that's probably part of it. But I think also he came, he wasn't here the whole year, and it's just not as mentioned. Had the grand slam at Game 5, won the World Series, had Tucker Davidson been able to hold the runs down, and they won that game, I think he'd be mentioned a lot more. But I think a lot of it's just his personality of being a quiet guy. One of my favorite players, but he's not an average guy. He's a homer guy. Much like Olsen, but I think Olsen's got slightly more on the average. I think Duvall is more of a just a home run guy. Joey Fox, has the shift been banned? It's been limited as far as I know. The extreme shift, as Jeff Nelson mentions, has been has been banned. Like, you can't put Austin Riley in right field, which I'm okay with, kind of, to tell you the truth. I definitely think that, it makes the game easier for hitters. And look, I mean, I think you're going to see more base hits, which I'm like that. That's why I'm okay with this, because it does make sense to me. Because if why would you hit a ground ball if you have a 97% chance of grounding out, right? Like, that ruined a lot of players. I think of Brian McCann, who it didn't ruin Brian McCann, but it changed how he approached, an at bat, because he couldn't outrun anywhere in the field if it was a ground ball. And that's unfortunate for a lot of players. And it's not just hitting it the other way. I mean, if you get limited to just one 5-foot area of the field on either side of the field, I mean, how often are you going to get on base? So I'm okay with it. I think it needed to happen to some degree, but we'll see. Richard Davis, after Fried, I think Snit is just trying to match up the starters. Anderson is supposed to pitch Sunday. Morton will pitch in Washington, a better team than Cincinnati on paper in a way. Anyway, yeah, I agree. I think they're trying to spread out their success a bit, which I don't mind, to tell you the truth. I definitely think that there's some philosophy there. I think they really want to put Fried on one end and Morton on the other, which, again, I'm okay with. I think that's kind of, not necessarily. I like the decision there, because ultimately, if you only got two pitchers that you're pretty solid that you're going to get a win with, and that's Fried and Morton. Anderson's, hit or miss, but, Inoa and Wright, you have a lot of questions about. And I think you need to spread out those two, and I'm okay with it. Jeff Nelson, will bigger bases make a difference in more stolen bases? At one time, I had a graphic made that showed the dimensions of those, and it's really not that big of a difference. Like, I know that there's been a lot of talk about it. I wish I had something square where I could show you. Here. Let's just say this is the base, right? The difference. Oh, no, it's not the same size. The difference is about like that. I mean, it's really not that big of a difference. I mean, it's like 2 or 3 inches square. Like, it's just not enough for me to really be concerned about, to tell you the truth. I wish I had that graphic pulled up and I could be able to show you, but I just don't. So it's really not that big of a difference. I don't think it's going to impact stolen bases that bad. It may make it a little easier to get there, but I don't think so. But thanks for the question. It's a pretty good question. Let me see. Break the Chain says, as a Braves fan, I honestly wish the Angels would give Trout a ring. Yeah, me too. I wish they had done it 5 or 6 years ago. So we'll see. Richard Davis says Braves did sign Preston Tucker to a minor league contract. Yeah, we talked about that the last stream, and I mentioned it, but it's kind of a I think he's kind of under the radar move. I think he'll be used for primarily AAA depth. But we'll see. Mab. Oh, sorry. Richard Davis, Braves have a habit of signing players and sending them to the minors to see if they get it together. Yeah, and I think that's a good habit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. They're not the only team to do that, but I think that it's I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily. Let me see. I'm kind of catching up to you guys, I think. I'm trying to skip a little bit ahead. Kinky Sizemore says, will the Braves win 100 games? I keep saying this, and I'm going to stick with it. Over 90, below 110, and I would even go over 95. That's where I'm at. I don't know if I'm confident in 100. Richard Davis seems to think we're going to win 112 games. If that happens, then, I don't know. I think I'm going above 95 based on the team we have now. So we'll see. Scott Knight says he would love to see Chipper be a skipper. Maybe I could see it one day. I definitely think there's some interest there. I don't think he needs the money though, so we'll see. I definitely think he's got the Braves at heart no matter what. But I love Chipper's mindset in general. So yeah, I'd love to see it, but we'll see. Bill Gates says Chipper won't take the dirty. I don't know what that means. A man after my own heart. But yeah, appreciate that, Bill. I don't know where you're going with that. Hey Tyler, worst move of the offseason: Conforto turning down $19 million and doesn't have a job, or the Rockies paying Chris Bryant $182 million with a full no trade clause. I think the Rockies is pretty bad. To tell you the truth, like Conforto will find somewhere. I think turning down $19 million was dumb, but I don't know what the Rockies are doing because they just lost Trevor Story and they didn't get anything for him. They're not competing. I don't know what Bryant's doing going there. I think he obviously wanted to go there. It is what it is. So I don't know. It's tough, but I don't know what the Rockies are doing there. Joey Fox says he likes the decision to not be able to extreme shift. And Richard Davis says, I think Green pitches Friday for Cincy. I think they've already announced that, I want to say, but I'm not for certain. Mab asks, hey Tyler, did you ask Johnny Estrada about when home plate umpire Doug Eddings ejected him? I did not. And I guess now's as good a time as any. I think I already said this, but I'm going to bring John. I've already cleared it with him. Some point during the season, he's already agreed to it. At some point during the season, we are going to do a live Q&A with Johnny Estrada. So basically, I think what I'm going to do is let you guys ask questions. I'll basically have some pre-made questions for him and get the conversation going. Mad, bring your question then. Super chat it, and I'll be sure to ask it. And I think that's what I'm going to do because I think there would be a lot of interest in that. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it how it develops. We may do more than that. We may do more than Estrada, but for right now, we for sure have two interviews. I can tell you who they are. At some point during the season, we're going to do Estrada. I think I'm going to hold off maybe till the All-Star break on Estrada, maybe until the first couple months of the season go by. Maybe not even that long, but we'll see. The one that's coming up the most soon, for sure, we're going to interview Casey Motter. I told you about that, the other day. That's the guy that does my intro, but he's also the PA guy in for the Braves. He's the guy that goes, hello, baseball fan. That guy, he's going to do an interview with me. We're going to talk about his career, all of what he's seen in the broadcast booth, how he got to the Braves. You're going to get to know Casey. So that'll be cool. And then, of course, we'll do the interview with Johnny. I'm going to a celebrity golf tournament in Helen this weekend, so I'm leaving. That's why I won't be at the Braves game. I may be at the Braves game Saturday. No guarantee there. But the plan is for me to be in Helen from Saturday till Tuesday. I'll be doing some interviews there. Tom Paciorek, former broadcaster for the White Sox, will be there. A lot of former Braves will be there. Daryl Cheney, my buddy, will be there. Chief Nakahoma will be there. So I'll get some stuff done and get some interviews, ready to release later this year as time goes on. But we do have some stuff planned. And then, of course, the Estrada interview, maybe try to do something with some other former Braves and get some longer form interviews, maybe some interactive interviews like we're doing with Estrada. But we got to knock him out before we could do anything else. So we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, to answer your question, you can ask him. I'm going to let you ask him, let him respond to you directly. But he's excited about it, to tell you the truth. I talked to him the other day, and he seems very excited about it. I'm going to answer these last few questions, and then I'm going to get out of here. So get them in. Richard Davis says, you think that the Braves are going to have 5 players hit 40 home runs, so they should win 112, right? Whoa, Richard. Bring it back a level. I said I think that there could be 5 players that could. 6 if you want to throw in Dansby if you got consistent. But Riley could. Olsen hit 39 a couple years ago. He could. Acuna, if healthy, could. Ozzy Albies, if he stopped hitting right-handed, could. Duvall, could. It's a big what if, right? I think they all could. They have the potential to do it. Do I think that the probability of all 5 of them doing that is high? No. I think that's, but I'm not going to pick, Olsen to do it and not, Duvall, right? That would be dumb. So I think they could. I don't think it's plausible for me to say that they will. I think that's kind of dumb. Richard Davis says Bryant's home run total will go up. Yeah, but I don't get it. Joey Fox asks a good question. Do you live stream during games? And Tyler asks, how often are you going to stream during the season? All right, so the tentative plan for that, I'm not going to stream during games. I'm just not. I'm not going to compete with a Braves broadcast. I think that would be dumb. That's kind of what happened last year. It got really hard to schedule live streams during the season because a lot of times they were playing games or whatever. It got really hard to do that. And there was no consistency there because they don't play every Monday night. They play Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Then the next week they play Thursday night, Friday night. So it's hard to get a consistent schedule. So what I'm going to do for right now, and I don't know that we're going to do this every game, so no promises here, but the plan is to do post-game streams. That is the plan. We're going to start with that, and we'll see how it ages. We'll see how it goes. The reason I'm probably going to do that is because usually if they play at 7-ish, they're done by 10:30, and I can get on here and talk to you guys at least for an hour or so prior to me going to work. But if not, there's going to be days where there's double headers. There's going to be days where the streams just won't happen, and there's nothing I can really do about that. But the plan is to do, for right now, post-game streams. And sometimes if the games are at 1 o'clock, we'll wait. We'll wait till 9:30 like we do all the time. But that is the plan at the moment. I can't guarantee a stream for 162 games. If they're on the West Coast, guess what? Probably no stream, right? We might do a pregame stream and lead you into it. But for right now, that is the plan, and it'll probably change as the season goes. But I appreciate you asking. I'm going to try to stream as often as I can because, to be honest with you, it's pretty profitable for me. It's doing pretty well as of right now. The formula of the streams is a lot better in terms of pre-recorded versus streams. It's a lot better for me. So I would like to stream as long as I can or as often as I can. So again, we'll see, but that's where the plan is now. And of course, I'll keep you guys updated. Of course, if you want updates, you can follow me on social media. I have those links below. And you can follow me, of course, on the community page here. Set notifications so that you know when we go live. You know when I make a post on the community page, all that stuff. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, I'll keep you updated best I can. But for right now, that is the plan. And I guess I might as well go ahead and say Thursday night, I do plan to go live after the game. Now, if it goes into extra innings, if it goes real late, and it's, I'll make a post and let you know what the plan is. But for right now, that is the plan. Whether or not they win, lose, tie, whatever they do. But we're definitely going to do we're definitely going to do something Thursday night and probably Friday night, I assume. Jordan Baldovi says, "Aloha Tyler, aloha Jordan. Out of these three former Braves outfielders, who do you think had a better Braves tenure? Ender Inciarte, Ryan Langerhans, and Nate McLouth?" I'd probably go Ender there. I mean, he had 3 Gold Gloves, I think. He had the first home run at Truist Park. And I think the first hit at Truist Park, too. So I'd probably go Ender, but I really like Nate McLouth, too. Like, I grew up with Nate McLouth. So I'd probably go Ender there, though. It's kind of hard to see. Bill Gates says, "Don't call it a comeback, but KU is down 3 to the Hills." Really? Hang on, let me go look at the score. Now you got me. I'm not watching the game, but oh wow, Kansas is taking the lead. Oh wow. I'm gonna probably go watch that. Looks like Kansas is giving you something. Wow. I'll have to go watch that. Richard Davis, the Braves are young. Most of the team, they should or hopefully get better each game. That is why we should be very good and can win 112. Richard, if it happens, you are the prophet that told us. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Hold me to it. Hold me to it. This stream will be up forever. So go back, mark the date, April 4th. You told me that they're going to win 112. In October, you come and get me, and I will give you all the credit in the world. But I just don't see it. Mab, hey Tyler, why don't the Braves make Ozzie stop hitting right-handed? He is no good from that side of the plate. You can't make a player do something. I don't think they want him to lose the ability to switch hit. But at the same time, I think he'd be more successful. Richard Davis, I think everyone hit over 30 with 3 or 4 hitting 40, but the catchers. yeah, I mean the catchers, you're not. It's just not going to happen. Plus, Darno is hurt, so I think everybody can hit 40, but 40 is a tough number for 5 guys to hit in the lineup. It just is. And homers aren't everything. Pitching is a lot of it too. David Surley says 55-50 Kansas. I'll give you an update on that. It's now 57-54 Kansas, but they have a lot of time left, so we'll see what happens there. I'm going to hop off so I can watch that. But Richard Davis, they talked about having Ozzie hitting right-handed last season, and he said no. It was some people snit or the coaches didn't want him to. Yeah, so I think, you can't make a player do something. They're going to do what they're comfortable with, and I don't mind that at all. So, but personally, I would like to see it happen just out of my own personal curiosity. So again, plan on seeing me Thursday night. I may do something tomorrow night if I'm feeling up to it, if I'm feeling like I can. But if something big happens tomorrow night, I'll be on here. No guarantees. I always like coming on here and talking to you guys. On your way out, do me a favor to like the video. Get it to 50. It's at 49, and that's quite an annoying number. So get it to 50, and of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I do this as much as I can. I come on, I talk Braves, I talk baseball. I mean, we've talked about a lot of subjects tonight. Braves, Mike Trout, the shift. I mean, whatever. We talk about everything on this channel. So make sure you subscribe. And of course, I always appreciate you guys tuning in. A lot of you guys still here, and I do appreciate that. I'm trying to watch the chat best I can. But yeah, so make sure again you're subscribed, and of course I will be here Thursday night after opening with the Reds. So I will be here. Plan on being here. Tell your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Tell them. Share the video on your Facebook. Share it to your socials. All that stuff. It helps me out a ton. You wouldn't believe how much it actually helps me. I want to grow this channel. I want to make it better. I want to make it grow. So help me do that. You're the only guys that can help me do that. So tell your friends, tell all your family, tell everybody. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. Again, Thursday night, maybe tomorrow night, we'll see. And then, of course, I'll give you an update later in the week for what is to follow. That's it for tonight, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you later right here at On Deck.